Rikuto stood on top of a building, watching the students chatting below. All he wanted was to end this ridiculous game. The man who had beaten him before started yelling, accusing him of neglecting the cleaning again. The floor was still a mess, and when Rikuto glanced at him, the man snapped, demanding how he dared look at him like that. He kicked him, reminding him that cleaning was his job since they had raised him after his parents died. A woman watched everything with a smile, adding that it was to be expected, considering the kind of parents he had. They were awful adoptive parents. When Rikuto opened the door to another room, a boy inside said it was his fault. Purposely spilling soda on the floor, he claimed the mess was Rikuto's responsibility. Approaching the already battered Rikuto, he mocked him, asking if he wasn't being generous, and kept teasing him. Later, when Rikuto arrived at school, he found his desk covered in scribbles with crude flowers drawn on it. Everyone laughed and mocked him behind his back. The teacher walked into the classroom, noticed the state of his desk, and immediately scolded him, demanding to know what he had done to it. Then Rikuto was shoved against the lockers as 3 of his classmates insulted him, demanding that he pay them 2,000 yen every day. In the end, Rikuto was so incompetent that he couldn't do anything. He looked at the boys and clenched his fists, but someone kicked him in the stomach, followed by a blow to his face. As the beating continued, one of the boys called him pathetic, accusing him of mocking them and telling him to ask his parents for money if he didn't have any. While being beaten, Rikuto thought about how life and everyone in it were garbage, but he felt he was even worse. When he stopped hitting him, his phone fell to the ground and one of the bullies noticed. As he reached to pick up his phone, the boy stomped on it. Seeing the cracked screen, he mockingly apologized, claiming his foot slipped. When Rikuto lowered his head, the bully raised his leg to step on it again. However, someone stopped him, telling him to give it a rest. It was Nishi, the star of the Western-style archery team and recent winner of the national tournament. All the students were surprised and the girls were charmed by him, with one of them commenting that he was amazing, even when helping a loser like Kerr again. Nishi gripped the bully's shoulder tightly, and the bully asked what he wanted, wondering how strong Nishi was as his shoulder hurt. Behind them, one of the boys grabbed a baseball bat to attack the archer, but Nishi punched him before he could swing. With the man on the ground, Nishi remarked that seeing such things on the streets was unpleasant. He then told everyone to leave. Takeda and his friends left immediately, calling it nonsense. After they were gone, Nishi crouched near Rikuto and asked if he was dead. He told him to try fighting back, saying they only acted that way because Rikuto did nothing, and questioned how he could claim to be living like that. Standing up, Rikuto turned his back on Nishi, asking what he knew. But Nishi was surprised to see Rikuto standing firm after such a beating, and wondered if he had taken less damage than it seemed. Amazed, he wondered if Rikuto had dodged the attacks at the last second, but he dismissed the thought, muttering to himself that it was a movie. Now back to the present moment, Rikuto watched the students laughing, playing, and talking to each other from the top of the building. He sat on the ground, staring at his broken phone with a mix of sadness and anguish. Looking up, he said it was all over, that he was tired of living with that pain, and climbed the fence surrounding the rooftop. Reaching the edge, he sat with his arms outstretched, saying he would just put an end to that stupid game. However, lightning began to appear in the sky and circles started forming between the bolts. From the circles, binary code in the form of bars began descending from the sky towards the city, destroying buildings. Phones all around started emitting strange noises, scaring their users and causing the devices to fall to the ground. Kurogame wondered how lightning could appear when the weather had been clear and what was going on. He heard a noise. Looking at the students, he saw one of them screaming in fear as their phone acted strangely. The phone displayed binary codes, which began forming a bubble. The bubble grew larger until it took shape, terrifying the student. It transformed into a raging monster that grinned at him. Monsters like dragons, goblins, and other beasts emerged from all the students' phones and began chasing them. Rikuto, who was safe on the terrace, heard cries for help and saw the students being attacked. They were all knocked down one by one and the boy couldn't understand what was happening. Hordes of mysterious monsters appeared suddenly all over the world. The fabric of society was destroyed in an instant. It is believed that the global population was reduced to less than 1/10. The origin of the cataclysm was unknown until a certain group of young people discovered the truth. At first, it was just an unknown fact. The monsters emerged from people's smartphones, nothing more. In the world that followed, survivors gave that day a name. Now is the day of judgment, standing on the railing of the school terrace. Kurogame wonders if it was true that the monsters from fantasy worlds were abruptly wiping out humanity. Smiling, he says he managed to put an end to it. Below them, several people were screaming for help and being attacked, and he says it was a death dream. Everyone who once insulted or mocked him was being attacked. He was happy and said serves them right, as all who made a fool of him were now in the claws of the monsters, and they could go to hell. Still smiling, Rikuto wonders how that dream could feel so realistic, as even people unrelated to him were being pursued. Watching the scene, the boy despairs, asking what was happening and why the dream was so long to come to an end. His life was a disaster. His parents were gone and everyone around him was awful. Even his brother, it didn't matter. None of it mattered. Now crying, the boy admits it wasn't right. No matter how he looked at it, it wasn't right for people to end up that way. While lost in thought, a noise is heard and the terrace door opens. A goblin enters through it, startling him. It was carrying a head. Upon seeing it, he realized it wasn't a dream. At that moment, he instinctively understood that it was real. Absolutely real. The goblin leaps at the boy to attack him with its mashi, and he falls from the railing to the terrace before it can strike him. Getting up, he realizes he is terrified, and seeing the head the monster carried understands it was the end. Frightened, he wonders if his end would come that way, but his consciousness began to tell him it didn't matter. Because he had already been planning it, he wanted to put an end to this game. Life was trash, and the world was too. Nothing would change if it ended there or in any other way. But he didn't want it to happen like that, and concludes he didn't want to end at all. Then, picking up an iron bar, he blocks the monster's attack. It knocks him to the ground, and the boy says that real death was insignificant, miserable, and pathetic. No, he was like that. He didn't want to end that way, so he resisted the monster's attack even more. Aware of this, he starts shouting that he didn't want to die because that wasn't the way he wanted in the first place. Thus, he continues holding the iron bar, preventing the goblin's mashi from striking him. Humans have a state known as the zone. Regardless of the cause, concentration reaches its limits, and he enters a perfect state of control over his body and mind. With this in mind, the boy manages to strike between the goblin's legs and knocks it down. It is said that when someone enters the zone, they obtain a perfect glimpse of the world around them, and they can intuitively and reflexively decide the best course of action. With the monster on the ground, he strikes it with the iron bar. The Kudo sees the goblin on the ground and is shocked by what he did. After vomiting, he screams in despair. His life until now wasn't real. That's why, from the depths of his heart, he feels that he wants to live. The boy wakes up to a voice asking how he is. As he gets up, he notices it was Nishi, who thanks him for being alive. Smiling, he says his head was bleeding a lot, which made him worry, looking at him curvy and recognizing him. Daze. The boy gets up and turns around, and the archer tells him not to overdo it. Looking for the fence, he notices the entire city was on fire. Looking around, he sees some students sitting desperate. Among them were Takeda, Tani, and Arata, the bullies who beat him, now scared and worried about what was happening. Sakura says it was all impossible, and Huyama, the PE teacher with his arm around her, says to stay together because he would protect her and that he would keep her safe. However, the girl was still worried. Staying the scene, the other girls comment that he was looking at her in a dirty way and felt sorry for her. Kurogane looks at a pile of objects, and Nishi explains that it's a barricade made from everything they could find to keep the monsters away. Everyone had fled from those mysterious monsters and desperately ran to the roof cup, where they set up the barricade. With his hand on his face, Kurogane comments that there were still people left behind in the school. From the other side of the barricade, they begged to be let in. Students had climbed the stairs and pleaded for help, but Huyama and another student said they couldn't undo the barricade. When the archer arrived, all they could hear were screams from the other side. Nishi said he genuinely felt sorry and guilty for not opening the barricade, even though he believed they wouldn't have survived if he had. Rikuto told him it wasn't his fault that no one wanted to meet such an end, and that he too had given his all to survive. Looking at the monster's body, Archer asked if Rikuto had done that as he was completely rattled and had never considered trying something like that himself. He added that if only he had that kind of determination, he might have been able to save those students. They heard screams and saw the PE teacher telling everyone to assess the situation, starting with the monsters coming out of the phones. Sakura confirmed and showed her phone, which initially seemed to work, but was now completely off, and another student showed that theirs was too. This way, everyone realized their phones weren't turning on, and Rikuto's was broken. The teacher lamented that they wouldn't be able to call for help like that. Karavian began questioning what it all meant. The monsters came out of the phones, so everything had to be connected somehow. But no monster had emerged from his phone, and he wondered if it was because it was broken. Huyama said they weren't getting anywhere, and suggested maintaining the status quo. He proposed waiting for the police or defense forces to rescue them and ask if everyone understood. Rikuto questioned if he was serious, leaving the teacher confused. He explained that since the monsters emerged from phones, it was highly probable they were all over the city, not just the school. Given the prevalence of phones today, especially in Japan, it was highly likely the entire world was in the same condition. He concluded by saying he doubted the police or special forces were in any position to mobilize. Hearing this, the students began to panic. Nishigen asked if they should secure a safer location instead of staying there, and Rikuto responded that if they didn't want to end up like that, they should do so. Takeda stood up, shouting, asking why a pathetic person was giving such selfish orders. He approached Rikuto, grabbed him by the collar, and said it seemed Rikuto wouldn't understand unless he taught him a lesson. However, Rikuto didn't respond and just stared at him, making the boy nervous. Kuravian wondered what had happened to the bully to make him talk so much nonsense in that moment. The other students agreed with Takeda and started insulting Rikuto. Nishigen Sakura tried to calm everyone down. Takeda asked Rikuto if he was so scared that he lost his voice, but all Rikuto thought about was how the bully looked like a chihuahua compared to the monster on the ground. Still trying to provoke him, Takeda demanded something from Rikuto, who replied that he should stop bothering him over trivial things because it was annoying. Everyone was stunned by his words, and Takeda, cursing, tried to punch him. The archer tried to intervene, but Rikuto grabbed Takeda's arm, caught him by the neck, and slammed him to the ground, leaving everyone shocked by his reaction. On the ground, the student complained about the pain and begged Rikuto to let him go. Calling the situation absurd, he wondered how he had ever been afraid of someone like Takeda. Takeda began insulting and threatening Rikuto, unable to free himself. Despite the insults, Rikuto pressed him harder against the ground. Nishi grabbed Rikuto by the arm to stop him, thinking he was crazy and certain he'd end up seriously injuring Takeda. Looking at him, Nishi wondered if this was the same person who had been bullied before. The other students, witnessing the scene, commented in disbelief. After getting up, Takeda continued threatening and cursing at Rikuto. Irritated, the archer yelled at him, saying this wasn't the time for fights, prompting the bully to back off. Turning to Rikuto, Nishi said it was water under the bridge, and Rikuto agreed. Facing the group, Rikuto said that what mattered most was figuring out what to do next, instead of engaging in meaningless fights. Hearing this, the bully kept insulting him angrily, but the teacher interrupted, asking if they could continue the discussion. Nishi calls for the teacher and steps forward, saying that in summary, there was nothing on that rooftop, and he doesn't know when rescue might arrive, or, in the worst-case scenario, if they would come at all. They need a safe place at all costs, as well as food and water supplies, but Kurogane interrupts him, saying that if possible, they would also need weapons. Sakura asks if such a safe place exists, and the archer replies that this was the heart of the problem. Rikuto says they need to check how things are inside because they can't begin without knowing if traveling is even possible. Stego shouted that he was against it because it was too dangerous, and there could be monsters on the way. They should stay and wait for rescue. The teacher comments that the boy was right, and they should at least check the hallway. The students oppose the idea, asking who would want to walk among monsters out there. Then the man calls for Kurogane and Takeda, telling both to check the situation inside the building. The second is startled upon hearing his name, and says the teacher should go to set an example. But the teacher says he will stay to protect the students. The girls agree, saying that if they were men, they should go, and nervously, he insults them. Rikuto grabs the iron pipe he used on the monster and moves toward the barricade. The so-frightened boy asks if he is serious, and Rikuto questions him in return. He says the situation will only worsen the longer they stay there. They will either starve or end up devoured by monsters. Either way, it will end here, and he doesn't want that. So in this case, they have no choice but to move. Hearing this, Nishi is encouraged, and grabbing his equipment says Rikuto is right, and that he will go too, as there might be other survivors. Oyama, scared, says that if anything happens to the boy, it will be his responsibility, and the girls scream at him not to go because it's dangerous. At that moment, Rikuto calls him a hypocrite, and Kurogane says he's glad Nishi is coming along because the Chihuahua doesn't seem inclined, leaving the other wondering about the nickname. Seeing Takeda trembling in fear, he realizes the boy is completely like a chihuahua. The boy asks if Nishi is sure because, to be honest, it will be a dangerous exploration, and the chances of being attacked are high. With a smile, Nishi says he doesn't want to die because he has a reason not to perish, remembering the image of a girl and a window. Recalling his own words, Rikuto tells his friend that he seems reliable, and the other replies he must have his screw loose, just like Rikuto. Somewhat awkwardly, he says he doesn't even know Rikuto's name yet. They introduce themselves to each other, and through jokes, they manage to pass through the barricade and enter. Kurogane and Nishi walk through a corridor full of bodies. The archer comments that everything feels like a bad dream, and his friend responds that it's just reality. The boy says he understands but wonders where all the monsters are, adding that he's not complaining, just finding it anticlimactic. His friend replies that maybe they left the school and went to the city, and Rikuto asks why. Rikuto comments that the school had already been closed, and he suspects there weren't many prey for the monsters there, so they left to find a better place. The archer agrees that this might be true but says it's horrible to hear, and in the middle of their conversation, he notices something. The boy was about to continue talking, but the archer interrupted him. Both hear a slapping sound coming from a distant corridor, so they stay on the edge cautiously. Nishi peeks and sees a goblin in the middle of the corridor. He looks at his friend, and they agree they can take it down if it's alone. Then he draws his bow and prepares his equipment. Keeping his distance, he takes his time to focus, and then fires an accurate arrow, which hits the goblin from behind, piercing its chest. The monster, with its high resilience, doesn't go down with the arrow, and looking back spots the archer, letting out an attack scream. The archer tenses, and before he can grab another arrow, the goblin rushes toward him with incredible speed. Kurogane intercepts its advance and strikes it directly on the head with the pipe, throwing away. The goblin, nearly incapacitated, looks back, trying to recover its strength, but the boy appears in front of it and strikes it multiple times, finishing it off. Nishi approaches the body and comments that his friend was brutal, as expected. He asks the archer if there are more signs of monsters, and the young man says there's nothing nearby and that everything went well. The other agrees. Amidst his thoughts, Rikuto comments that there are monsters against which humans stand no chance, recalling the dragons he had seen earlier. Nishi, confused, asks what these monsters are and remarks that no matter how he looks at them, they all seem typical of a video game. He adds that the monster it just defeated strongly resembles a goblin. Kurogane comments that he has the impression of having seen these monsters somewhere before. Growing more nervous, his companion begins trembling, realizing that if the monster had landed a hit on him, he would have actually died. But with determination, he clenches his fist and says that now, in real life, they are truly putting their lives on the line. The other agrees and adds that, unlike a game, they have no leveling system, cheats, or even magic. They're just ordinary humans. The archer says that Rikuto is definitely not a novice and asks if he had any weapon training or a mentor, but Rikuto gets lost in his memories. He recalls his brother, whom he had defeated in a one-on-one battle, and answers the archer that he never had any training. Nishi asks why he let himself be bullied by those boys despite having so many skills, and Kurogane responds that he doesn't know exactly why. The companions continue advancing and find a room on fire with several bodies on the floor, but they press on. The archer comments that everything is eerily silent and that apparently the monster they defeated was the only one on the 6th floor. Rikuto explains that most of the rooms were training areas, so there weren't many people on that floor. However, there might be more monsters below. They head toward the stairs to descend to another floor, but before going down, Rikuto says he wants to clarify their objectives. Kurogane states that the goal is to assess the situation, and Nishi adds that they need to figure out how many people are in the school and what escape routes are available. The archer emphasizes that they need as much information as possible to take their next steps. His companion says that returning alive with some information is the most important thing, and that if they are in danger, anyone can leave the others behind to save themselves. Trying to lighten the mood, Rikuto says they are in an emergency situation and that no one should hold any hard feelings about such decisions. He jokes that his companion is acting tough, but before he can finish speaking, they hear a cry for help from the floor below. Rikuto freezes for a moment before rushing downstairs. His companion remarks that he knows exactly what kind of person Rikuto is, someone who would never abandon others. On the lower floor, a monster is walking around. It wields an iron club, resembles a goblin, but is larger and has horns. Tachibana Kotan is hiding in a cabin, trying to make no noise, but through a small gap, she is horrified by what she sees. The goblins are stripping her classmates while they cry out for help, and she thinks she should help them, but no, she can't. One of her classmates begs the goblin to stop, but it goes into a frenzy and attacks her. She closes her eyes and covers her ears, falling into complete panic over what she's witnessing, apologizing for always doing nothing and running away from everything. In her memories, she sees herself in a crowd, watching Rikuto being beaten. He is being assaulted by the class bullies, and she recalls thinking she should stop them from committing such violence. Trembling, she tries to ask them to stop, but the blonde-haired bully kicks Rikuto in the face, and she starts apologizing again. She feels safe replacing his hand on her shoulder and calling her name. He asks for what's going on and says class is about to start. Barely reacting, she is quickly pulled away by him, who insists they should leave while Rikuto remains on the ground. Tachibana awakens in the cabin again, realizing she fainted from the stress of everything she witnessed. In a panic, she wonders what happened to everyone and how long she had been there. Amid her many questions, she tries to take her phone out of her pocket, but in her nervousness, it slips from her hand and falls to the floor, making a loud noise. She becomes very nervous, noticing that the sounds around her momentarily grow louder before falling silent. Still extremely anxious, she realizes she hears nothing anymore and wonders if they notice her, only to be startled by two goblins opening the cabinet door. As the door fully opens, goblins, the young woman sees all the bodies in the room and that her friend Misaki is there too. The goblin grabs the young woman by her hair and pulls her out of the closet. Then the monster begins tearing her clothes as she screams for help. Another monster appears and attacks the goblin with a single blow, leaving the girl terrified. The others in the room surround the monster, but with a single strike, it dismantles all the goblins around it. The girl, in complete shock, screams with all her might for someone to help her, and the two young men begin running toward the screams. The monster grabs her with one hand and drags the tied-up bodies of the goblins through a corridor. The girl apologizes and begs it to let her go, but the monster becomes angry and slams her against the wall, knocking her unconscious. Rikuto and Nishi watch the monster from a distance, and the archer becomes scared, wondering if his arrows can even hurt such a creature. His friend says his instincts were right, and the other asks what that monster is. The young man asks if he didn't find it strange that there were so few monsters on the previous floor. He continues, saying the reason was due to this new monster. The boy then realizes that the goblins were being killed by a type of monster that was their predator, and stood above them in the food chain. He comments that the monster is much stronger and more territorial, and they have no chance of dealing with it alone. Lost in thought, the archer grows worried about the girl and is startled to see Kurogane getting up and almost revealing their position as he heads toward the monster. The archer asks what he's doing, and the boy replies that he's going to save her because she's still alive. The other asks if he wants to die. Nishi says that even if they wanted to, they wouldn't be able to defeat alone, and ask why he's acting this way. He questions if it's for self-satisfaction or a sense of justice, that he's putting his life in danger without even thinking straight. The Kudo says that during the break, the archer asked him if he felt alive and reveals that he truly wanted to. But facing death because of the monster, he felt in the depths of his heart that he wanted to live and that he would never let himself fall that way again. He then says he's going to save the girl because he wants to, and being able to think this way is proof that he's alive. Nishi says he seems insane and asks if dying so stupidly by facing the monster is what he calls living. Kuravian replies that he doesn't need to come with him, that it's his problem alone, and in his memory, he sees the figure of his brother. Serrano calls him incompetent and says he has no money, no family, and no one by his side. So because of all that, he was dead and should act like it. The Kudo says he feels sorry for the boy, but that he will never be someone dead again, even if it destroys him. The archer interrupts him, grabbing his shoulder, and says he has a sister who isn't related by blood and studies at another school. He asks why he's saying that out of nowhere, and the boy replies that he doesn't want to die there, either because she would be left alone. Nishi continues saying that leaving that girl as she is and running away would be shameful, and that if his sister were in a similar situation, he would have to help her. And he wonders if he would be capable of fighting and protecting his sister, and that it would torment him if he made up some excuse and just ran away. He then reveals that because of this reason, he's going to help Kuravian take down the monster, and together, they will save the girl. Kuravian says the two of them are going to do something stupid for selfish reasons, and asks if he's okay with that. The Kuno laughs and says the archer also has something wrong in his head, and the archer, embarrassed, says a man must have his pride. After coming to an agreement, they begin thinking about how to execute their plan. Nishi asks his friend how he plans to do it, because just going head-on would be too risky. Kuravian reveals that of the other fights he has an idea, and with that, the two start planning. The girl wakes up to find herself tied to a wooden lawn along with several goblins, as the monster was roasting them as skewers. The monster, while eating, notices the girl has woken up, and in terror, she lets out a loud scream, prompting the two young men to move and initiate their plan. At that moment, the archer says as he runs that after hearing Rikuto's plan, he's sure the young man is completely out of his mind. The girl, in despair, begins to think she won't leave alive, and that she will be devoured by the monster after being burned in the fire it set up. Crying, she starts saying she doesn't want to die, and the monster notices she's moving again and approaches her. It knocks her down and grabs the wooden plank to which she is tied, carrying her toward the fire. As they get closer to the flames, she panics. However, both notice Kuravian at the door, who tells her to close her eyes. The monster drops the plank and grabs his club. As it approaches the boy with its iron club, Kuravian pulls out a fire extinguisher and sprays it in the monster's face, temporarily blinding it. While the monster is blinded, Rikuto runs toward Takabana and unties her. She calls his name, but he says he doesn't know her and is just helping. In her thoughts, the girl says it's obvious he doesn't remember her, and wonders why he would even remember. Kuravian, realizing his knife isn't cutting the ropes, switches to plan B and bangs a pipe on the floor to signal Nishi. The archer understands the signal and is incredulous, realizing they will have to carry out his friend's crazy plan. Approaching Rikuto, Nishi says he's not confident about the plan, but will do his best shot and asks not to be blamed if he misses. The monster, regaining its senses, sees Kuravian kneeling in front of the girl. Enraged, it roars, shattering all the windows. Rikuto raises the pipe, and the furious monster lifts its iron club to attack. He thinks that if he makes any wrong move, it will all be over. Observing the attack pattern, he uses a technique called Kiryatoshi to parry and redirect the monster's attack to the side, successfully blocking it. He feels both surprised and relieved. The boy remarks that it's been a long time since he used that technique, but his muscle memory hasn't failed him. Rikuto stands still, holding a metal bar against a demon-like monster. Quickly, Yapona tries to strike the protagonist, catching him off guard, but Rikuto manages to defend himself. At that moment, the boy slightly alters the attack vector instead of opposing the opponent's attack head-on. The battle continues between them. Rikuto strategizes to minimize the impact of the opponent's strikes and counter with minimal force. He attacks the monster's feet. It's explained that this is a technique used in modern kendo. The protagonist remembers his father. He acknowledges that he never forgot the skills his father taught him as a child. Rikuto silently thanks his father for the teachings. A girl watches the boy's battle with a monster and thinks it's incredible. Trying to stay calm, the protagonist reminds himself that these are just monsters without proper techniques. Angry, the demon seems to prepare for another attack. Without waiting long, it swings a blow toward the boy. Rikuto defends himself as best he can, using his techniques. Intent on crushing the boy, the monster continues attacking ferociously. Using his skills, the protagonist lands a precise strike on the opponent's wrist. He thinks to himself that the adversary only relies on brute force to swing its weapon. The two continue fighting, growing angrier at each other. Once again, the demon tries to attack with its spiked club. To Rikuto, the monster's attacks seem broad and monotonous. Full of skill, the boy manages to land a blow on the monster's head, but he admits that such a strike would be much easier against a human opponent. The monster screams in pain and appears weakened. The girl observing the scene is amazed that the boy can defend against all the attacks and thinks he's incredible. Showing slight fatigue, the boy still refuses to give up. He explains that even though he's defending himself, the impacts are taking a toll on his body. He knows he can't sustain the fight for much longer, as his strength beat into wane. The monster regains its focus, and the boy realizes that despite giving it his all, it's not working. Deciding to retreat defensively, he reflexively dodges the attacks. Studying the giant monster, Rikuto concludes that a frontal attack is impossible. He decides to move quickly to attempt a final strike. From a distance, he calls out to the demon to grab its attention. Once again, smoke starts pouring from the monster's ears, a clear sign it's preparing to attack. The opponent looks back toward the girl who is tied to the wooden log on the ground. He grabs the wooden log where the girl is restrained and tries to advance, using it as a weapon while the girl screams. Rikuto realizes he's in serious trouble in this situation. Brutally, the demon attacks with the wooden log. Outside the building, the sounds of the battle can be heard. Things in the environment are being broken. The protagonist tries to run as the monster swings wildly with the girl tied to the wooden log. Rikuto is faster and manages to escape as the demon roars. The girl is left alone, feeling a bit upset for being abandoned. Playground is shown. Two boys are bullying the girl as a child while she cries, curled up in a corner. Someone shows up to defend her. It's Rikuto, and he asks why they are bullying the little girl. Back in the present day, the girl reflects on how the protagonist has always been like that, risking everything for someone else. She cries while still tied to the wooden log. A boy observes from outside and says he's about to jump in and help with the fight. He sees Rikuto defending himself against the monster and thinks the guy is amazing for managing to do so, but he believes that Rikuto is reaching his limit. Walking toward the battle, the boy asks the protagonist to hold on and drive the demon about 10 more meters. His steps quicken as he hurries to the scene. Arriving at the location, his expression darkens as he declares that this is where he'll put an end to the story without failing. The protagonist keeps running, luring the monster. At one point, Rikuto looks back and tries to hit the opponent with his iron bar. Exhausted, he puts all his strength into the swing to strike the enemy, but his grip falters and the demon lands a direct hit. Rikuto is thrown far away. The boy is injured and lies on the ground, to the despair of the girl who witnesses the scene. Nearby, the boy who came to hell also sees what happened. Everyone shouts for Rikuto-san. He lies on the ground, unable to move. Watching the scene, the boy with the arrows analyzes the situation as dire. Nishi remembers his friend's advice. He must aim at one specific point and cannot miss, as there's only one chance, and if he fails, the boy will die. As he observes, Nishi is so unsure if he can shoot the arrow. He thinks about the 3 conditions for hitting the target. The angle, the distance, and everything necessary for a perfect shot are not ideal. However, Nishi knows there isn't much time as he could be discovered. Thinking deeply, he wishes the monster would get a bit closer and turn to present a perfect angle for the shot. The doubt lingers, as waiting too long might cost him the chance. And while his thoughts are racing, he's interrupted. Rikuto, even injured and on the ground, shouts for him not to shoot. Nishi becomes even more confused and unable to understand. His friend loudly says he needs to be a few meters closer and asks him to wait as he gets up from the ground again. Face to face with the demon once more, the protagonist's actions are observed by the boy hidden nearby. Tied to the wooden maw, the girl cries and calls out for Rikuto. Unfazed, the monster approaches again. Exhausted, Rikuto coughs and begins to hunch over. Suddenly, the young man drops to his knees. The demon believes it's his moment and starts shooting lightning from his eyes as the protagonist watches. He gets up from the ground again and places the iron bar in front of him to defend himself. Even so, the young man thinks his legs are weak and wonders if he can keep leading the monster a few more meters. Furious, the opponent growls and roars. The clash between the two continues relentlessly. Nishi is startled by the intensity of the roar. The girl tied to the log begs Rikuto to run, saying the monster will kill him, but he tells them not to worry about him. With a determined expression, the protagonist stares down the demon again. Desperate, the girl asks why and says she doesn't deserve to be rescued by him. She admits she abandoned the boy all this time and doesn't deserve his help. The school building is shown. Rikuto is being beaten by a group of boys while the girl watches. Quickly, she considers using her courage to help her friend. Without thinking much, the girl rushes toward the group and tells them to leave the protagonist alone. Suddenly, someone touches her shoulder and calls her by name. Stigo appears and starts talking to Kotan. He tells her she shouldn't be involved in something like this and could end up getting hurt. The boy continues, saying she just needs to be a good person and do what he says, while Rikuto keeps getting beaten. Manipulated, Kotan says she will do what was agreed upon with the boy. At the end of the flashback, Kotan repeats that she has always been a coward and was never able to help her friend. She continues, saying she is tired of just standing by and watching someone let her unable to do anything. The demon tries to attack again. Its growls and roars grow louder and more intense. Overwhelmed by rage, the monster shows signs of preparing to attack once more. It charges at the boy. At this moment, Rikuto notices that the combo, the weapon wielded by the monster, has lost its momentum. With the opening, the protagonist seizes the right moment to strike the adversary. The attack is interrupted by the demon's weapon. Once again, the boy is sent flying and ends up injured. Rikuto falls to the ground. Kotan is also thrown while tied to the wooden plank held by the demon. She is in pain and despair, crashing hard onto the ground. Seeing Rikuto lying on the ground, the red monster quickly moves toward him. Distressed, the girl begs her friend to run, but he is unresponsive. Without strength, the protagonist acknowledges there is nothing more he can do. The demon towers over the boy and raises its combo to strike him. In a low voice, Rikuto signals to Nishi that the Tarbeev is at the right distance. Before hearing the words, Nishi is already in position with his bow and arrow. He reassesses the distance and angle and declares he won't miss such an easy shot. Surprised, the monster notices the boy's presence and shifts its focus away from the protagonist. The young archer prepares to attack. Acting quickly, he fires the arrow. The arrow flies straight and hits the demon squarely in the eye. A flashback shows what happened 10 minutes before the scene. Rikuto hands the sirens to Nishi and instructs him to use it. Nishi asks if it's the same thing Sakura had given them before they entered the building to explore, and Rikuto nods. He explains that it's undiluted ethanol meant for chemistry experiments, essentially 100% pure alcohol. They recall the blonde girl handing them the sirens and asserting that the liquid would be useful. Nishi observes the scene and wonders why the girl was carrying something like that. The flashback shifts back to the boys inside the building, where Rikuto instructs his friend to coat the arrow with the alcohol and fire it at the monster. Nishi wonders if it will really work, and Rikuto believes it will. It's explained that alcohol is a deadly potion, intoxicating any organism. Even a few milliliters injected directly into the bloodstream would render the monster unable to stand. With that sirens, it would be enough to destroy the demon. Nishi finds the idea logical, but doubts its feasibility. He points out that even a child would know the needle wouldn't penetrate the monster's skin. Rikuto explains that Nishi should aim for a specific point, the demon's eye. He reasons that the eye would be vulnerable enough to pierce, though Nishi questions how Rikuto knows the eye is a good target. A fire extinguisher is shown, and Rikuto explains that he will confirm it using the device. Determined, he says he will spray the monster's face, and if it tries to cover its eyes, it means the eyes are no different from those of humans. The plan is laid out, and Rikuto considers it straightforward. He states he will begin, and Nishi will finish. Concluding, Rikuto tells his friend he's counting on him to make the plan work. The scene returns to the present. With the demon struck by the arrow in its eye, it roars in pain. Pleased with his success, the archer celebrates the plan. The fire extinguisher tests confirm the monster's eyes were fragile. The plan, as simple as it seemed, was effective. Joking, Link Nishi says he scored 10 points as he hit the center of the target perfectly. The demon tries to pull the arrow out of its eye. Still on the ground, Rikuto asks his friend what he thinks about it. Kutan once again finds everything happening utterly incredible. Angry, the monster rips out the arrow with a needle and charges toward the boys but starts to stagger. The protagonist realizes the alcohol is taking effect. A loud roar fills the air. Using all its strength, the monster swings its weapon at the boy, leaving Rikuto momentarily disoriented. Quickly, the demon attacks, but the boy manages to dodge. Nishi panics and calls out to his friend. He concludes that the ethanol might act as a poison, but it doesn't kill instantly. Even angrier, the monster charges forward. From outside the building, the scene is visible with shattered glass and destroyed walls. There's a hole in the wall, and Rikuto notices the demon is heading straight toward it. When the monster attacks, the boy waits for contact, but instead rushes forward and grabs it by the waist. Using the last of his strength, he pushes the opponent toward the hole. He tries to throw it off the building, but it's heavier than he can handle. The boy keeps applying more force. Something catches his attention, and when he looks up, he sees the monster preparing to attack from above. Nishi novices as well and runs toward his friend. He also grabs the monster by the waist, and with the combined strength of the two, they manage to push the opponent through the hole. The demon falls, but Rikuto goes with it, still clinging to the adversary. Screaming and roaring, the monster crashes to the ground. There's no sign of the protagonist. Suddenly, the boy appears, being grabbed in midair. Nishi, acting quickly, managed to catch his friend and prevent him from falling from the heights. Upon impact, the demon breaks the floor and fractures its horns. Koton watches the scene anxiously, but is relieved and happy that her friends are safe. She thanks God that both are okay. Rikuto calls out to his friend, who asks what's wrong. He says what just happened was insane, and asks if his companion is stupid. Satisfied with saving the protagonist's life, the boy with the arrows responds. The first place in the national tournament is mentioned, leaving Nishi confused. Laughing, the boy jokes that Rikuto was still out of touch with reality. Koton asks for help to be untied, as she's still bound with ropes. Using a sharp rock, the boys manage to free the girl. Nishi asks if the girl is okay, even though she's visibly traumatized, and if she can stand. Before he can finish his sentence, the girl gets up and quickly walks past him. She goes straight to Rikuto and hugs him. Koton thanks her friend for saving her. Watching the scene, the boy with the arrows seems to realize something. He asks the protagonist what's going on. He adds that all the risk was to save his girlfriend, leaving the two young people in shock. Playfully, Nishi continues saying that for someone dating a beautiful girl, Rikuto is a calm guy, but Koton interrupts and says they are not a couple. The protagonist, confused by everything that's happening, says he wants to ask a question. He then decides to ask who the girl is, leaving the other two baffled. Thinking it's a joke, the boy with the sword says that's too much, but Rikuto insists he really doesn't know who she is. Koton says the question makes sense, as he might not remember since it's been a long time. She introduces herself as Tachibana Koton and says she studied at the same school as him. Trying to jog his memory, she says they were close and called each other Riku-chan and Koto-chan. Hearing the nickname, Rikuto seems to remember. His eyes widen as he realizes she's a girl he cannot forgive. Another flashback occurs, and the protagonist recalls scenes from the past. Koton was a girl he wanted to protect, a battle he couldn't afford to lose. In one scene, he pushes a boy who was humming the girl. He says that was the beginning of the end. A dialogue about a traffic accident takes place where the brakes failed. Rikuto is shown crying in the rain over the bodies of two people who died in the accident. He says a part of him was lost. Nearby, the boy who was with Koton holds a piece that might belong to the car. The protagonist says Serato had a childish mind and a diabolical cunningness and coldness. Angry, and the boy continues, saying the others stole everything he could from him while remembering a scene where he lay on the ground with his head being stepped on. Concluding his thoughts, Rikuto says that at some point during his events, he died inside. He regains consciousness and returns to the present, ending a flashback. Trembling, the protagonist starts to feel unwell, leaving everyone confused about what's happening. Koton panics, asking what's wrong with the boy. Trying to calm her, he says it's nothing and that he's fine now. Nishi intervenes and says it's obvious his friend is not okay. The protagonist says he remembered who Tachibana it is. He states that he didn't remember they were from the same school while the girl apologizes. She says she wishes she had spoken to Rikuto earlier, but he tells her she made the right choice since nothing good could come from getting involved with the bullying he endured. Koton feels sad hearing this. Nishi approaches and says the sun will set soon, that they can't waste time, and asks if the girl will join them. She replies, yes. He acknowledges that she's going through a tough time, that tells her she must understand. After all that, the trio starts moving around the school. The girl kneels in praise for a deceased boy. Nishi catches a lizard that spits fire from its mouth. They then realize there's no sign of monsters in the building. Rikuto realizes that now that they killed the monster boss, smaller ones might appear. The trio secures the fire doors and the route to the second floor, which should suffice. But now they must head to the rooftop where others are waiting. Upon reaching the rooftop, they find 4 survivors there. Everyone is happy to see their friends return and calls them Nishi's patrol. A boy runs toward the archer and says he never lost faith in him. Another boy calls for Kotan and hugs her. It's Seiju-kan who says, "Thank God you're alive." She calls out Rikuto's name. Nishi notices something peculiar is happening. He asks if the boy is someone the girl knows. Quickly, the boy introduces himself as Seiju Shinjuru, Kotan's boyfriend. Sakura is intrigued upon hearing the story. Kotan becomes embarrassed, but her boyfriend tells her there's no need to feel that way as their parents approve of their relationship. He adds that he's proud everyone survived. He thanks Nishi for saving the girl, but the archer says the one who deserves gratitude is Rikuto. It's explained that the protagonist is the one who actually saved the girl. Sakura asks if that's really true, amazed by what she's hearing. The conversation among the group continues on the rooftop. Staker remarks that Nishi said Rikuto defeated Takeda easily earlier and asks if it's really the same boy. Rikuto replies that he should be called Kurugan. A flashback shows the protagonist being grabbed by his collar by his bullies who mock him. Kotan's boyfriend then thanks the protagonist, saying the girl has caused him many problems. Rikuto responds that it's not a problem, and Seiju assures him everything will be fine and that he will protect her from now on. He asks Rikuto to leave Kotan in his care. Taking Kotan aside, her boyfriend says she should rest since she's clearly exhausted, but she insists she has something to say to Rikuto. The protagonist and Nishi are confused. Sakura continues to be amazed by what she's seen. Thanking the girl, the archer says the alcohol she provided saved their lives. She begins to explain about the monster and its bodily composition from oxygen molecules to the circulatory system and how the alcohol worked. Nishi asks why she had a siren with ethanol, and she pauses to think of an answer. Before she can respond, Oyama-sensei interrupts and asks Rikuto to explain the entire situation. After the explanation, the group concludes that the situation is unfavorable. The archer states they didn't find any other survivors apart from Tachibana, which isn't a good sign. The remaining survivors are saddened by the news. It's explained that the lower floors of the building are safe since the fire doors are closed, providing decent places to sleep. Nishi declares that under these conditions, they can endure a little longer. The teacher gives orders for everyone to gather supplies and find a secure base, stating he will take charge of the situation. Two Mois Maken calling Oyama an idiot. A new base is being established by the students. With mutual help, everyone begins organizing a space to stay. Each person helps in whatever way they can. Rikuto is seen carrying the bodies of the deceased on his own. Kodaman says it's awful of Oyama to make Rikuto carry all the bodies by himself. The protagonist replies that someone has to do it and remove them from the base before they start decomposing. The girl asks what he will do after gathering all the bodies, and he says it will be difficult to bury them all. Rikuto decides to take the bodies to the rooftop. There must be another way to remove them from there. Tachibana agrees with him. Frustrated, Rikuto continues carrying the bag of bodies, commenting on how strange the situation is. One of the bodies he carries is of a boy who used to bully him in class. Lost in his thoughts, the boy believes that all the bullies and even the neglectful teachers deserve to die, and that if everyone were dead, he could laugh deeply. At that moment, Kotan interrupts him. He concludes that he wouldn't be able to laugh, which is the worst feeling. Rikuto adds that he hasn't been able to laugh ever since everything happened to him, and that this might be divine punishment. Tachibana says that the boy is a hero and always has been, both now and in the past. Hearing the word hero, the protagonist is surprised. The girl says she will help him with the bodies. The protagonist asks if she's sure, given that it's a shocking scene for a girl to see, but she says it's okay, that it's something she shouldn't abandon, and the boy then says that in that case, she's welcome. Both continue on their way, but someone calls out to Kuragane. When he looks back, the person attacks Rikuto, and they engage in a physical fight, scaring Tachibana. It's the girl's boyfriend, furious, who asks what the protagonist is doing with her. Angrily, he grabs the girl by the arm and says the boy doesn't need her help to do something so disgusting. Rikuto lies on the ground, watching, unable to understand. Seiku mocks him, saying the boy is clever to think Kotan would do his dirty work, and that the protagonist should be ashamed of himself for wanting a girl to do such a horrible task. Hearing all this, Kotan steps in and defends her friend, saying she offered to help. The boyfriend says he understands what's happening, and has no doubt the girl was forced because of her rescue. She asks what he's talking about. Seiku says he will tell everyone about what just happened. The protagonist, though still confused about the situation, remains silent. Kotan tries to defend the boy again, and asks why her boyfriend would do something so terrible to her friend, but he tells her to shut up. Rikuto says he doesn't care, and that the boy can do whatever he wants. Realizing he can't get a rise out of the protagonist, the girl's boyfriend nervously laughs. He says the boy can bluff like a pro, even though he's about to snap. Finally, he pulls his girlfriend by the arm, saying she has no business being there. The protagonist continues carrying the bodies, but looks back. At that moment, Kotan breaks free from Seitu, leaving everyone surprised. She says she's heard enough. Desperate, the boy asks what the girl is doing. Pouring her heart out, the girl says their parents' social standing was why she was polite to him, but she can't take it anymore. The boy doesn't understand and says he thought they would be together forever. She starts crying, leaving the boyfriend even more desperate. Rikuto steps in and asks them to argue somewhere else as they are disrupting his work, but he is told to shut up. He insists, saying he's asking Kotan not to cause trouble, while Sato keeps asserting that no one will be able to protect her. Shocked by what she hears, the girl says it's bizarre for her boyfriend to talk about protection and that he used her as a sacrifice to save himself. Realizing he's been found out, the boyfriend calls Tachibana clueless, and she says she's figured it all out. A flashback shows the moment when the monster is attacked and everyone flowed. The couple was in one of the school hallways. She says the rooftop might be a safe place and informs her boyfriend. As they approach the location, Seitu trips her. Kotan falls to the ground and is left behind by the boy. Desperate, she begs him to wait, but he ignores her. The monsters get closer to the girl. Terrified, she notices a nearby locker. Not wanting to die, Kotan hides inside. After the whole story is revealed, Seitu becomes enraged, saying it's a lie and that he can't believe the girl said such a thing. But Tachibana remains firm, saying there's no way she could be wrong about what happened. She concludes by saying she can no longer trust the person she once called her boyfriend. She adds that she always thought they should never have been together. Then, furious, the girl asks to be forgotten by her ex and says she never wants to see him again for the rest of her life. After hearing everything, Seitu asks Koton if she has any feelings for Rikuto. He bursts into laughter, leaving his girlfriend confused. The girl becomes worried about what she just heard. Irritated, he tells her to shut up. He tries to punch her, saying she should only do what he tells her. Before the punch lands, Rikuto steps in and grabs the boy's hand. Once again, he calmly asks both of them to let him work in peace. Patiently, he releases Seitu's hand, who then remarks that Rikuto has always had a different aura, even though he was always surrounded by hooligans dressed like death. Finally, Kotan's ex asks why everyone who bullied Rikuto ended up dead. Tachibana intervenes, saying the boy is going too far. After this, Seitu merely scoffs. Rikuto says he wants to ask the boy a question. Directly, he asks what the slander campaign is against, and says he doesn't care, as it won't make Seitu any more important. Angrily, Seitu says the boy is dark and asks how he dares lecture a model student. Seitu attempts to fight, and Kotan steps in, but they ask her to stay out of it. Out of control, the ex-boyfriend says someone like Rikuto should leave for everyone's benefit. The protagonist remains unfazed. Seitu continues provoking, saying Kurogane isn't anyone special just because he fought a monster. Rikuto mimics that Seitu approaches using karate strikes, likely indicating a high ranking. Knowing what he's doing, Rikuto thanks him, but says he won't fight. He's called a coward, but says he doesn't care. Kurogane states that, like it or not, he's a friend of Tachibana's, and for that reason, won't hurt him. Seitu completely loses his temper at the refusal and still tries to fight. Irritated, he yells that Rikuto doesn't know when to shut up. With years of dojo training, Rikuto knows he can defend himself. He dodges the first punch. The kick aim at him also misses. Seitu realizes that after Kurogane face a giant monster, nothing phases him anymore. He acknowledges the protagonist has immense mental strength. After another attempted strike, Rikuto dodges, and the ex-boyfriend falls hard onto the bag of bodies. He's shocked to see one of the corpses inside the bag. Mockingly, Kurogane asks if the boy will help him carry the bodies. Even angrier, Seitu grabs a piece of wood. Everyone hears a noise. Looking around, he sees Nishi watching them. The archer asks what's going on. Rikuto says it's nothing, but his friend disagrees. The tension between the boys remains high. Nishi understands what's happening and becomes suspicious. He asks Tachibana if she's okay with what's going on. Seitu gives up, saying everything is fine and leaves the area. Irritated, he walks past the archer, who reflects that Seitu excels in studies and sports. He notes Seitu's obsession with Katon and hopes he won't fight over her. Rikuto asks why his friend is there, and Nishi replies that his task has calmed down so he came to help. He apologizes for leaving all the work to Rikuto, but the latter says it's nothing. The two exchange a fist bump. Tachibana feels happy about the friendship between the boys. They decide to take the bodies to the rooftop and return later to discuss the next steps. Some time passes and night falls. Everyone gathers in the shelter. The teacher observes his students. A box of supplies is delivered, enough for everyone to remain there for for a while. Everyone finds Oyama annoying. Nishi says he's not hungry. Meanwhile, Rakuto enjoys a variety of food. He warns that if his friends don't eat, they'll die. The archer agrees, but says he can't eat right now. A scream is heard, confusing everyone. It's Sakura, looking at her phone and wondering why it doesn't work. Nishi approaches her, asking what's going on. He notices she has a phone charger, and the girl says she found it and wanted to charge her phone but couldn't. The boy ponders and says it might have already been used, but Sakura insists it hasn't, as it was still wrapped. They conclude that the phones the monsters emerged from should be collected. Sakura feels sad because she thought she could get online and find information. She continues to limit, saying she wishes she had internet. Kotan asks if the internet would even work without power, and the blonde replies it would, as this is a model city for development. Additionally, it doesn't require external electricity to function. Nishi said as he doesn't understand any of it but would like to learn more. Sakura says that if she had a phone, the monster wouldn't come out of it. One of the boys shows her a device. It's Kurigan, who asks if it's a smartphone that doesn't produce monsters. He says his was broken before the incident, so nothing comes out of it. Nishi speculates that the phone might be broken. Kotan says the device is the same as hers and they match in that. Their friend observes and remarks that it's a very old model they used to have. While the conversation continues, Sakura wonders if the phone could be repaired. Could you consider ways to fix the device? She says she's starting to see a glimmer of hope. Still at the school, Nishi warns everyone that the current pace, the situation will only worsen and the food they found will only last 3 days. The Kudo adds that the weapons they have are few and that the steel pipe is still better than the available armament. The boy with brown hair continues, summarizing that they are all in big trouble, but he emphasizes that there's still hope because according to Kuju, it's possible to fix Kurigani's phone using the right tools and parts from Tachibana's phone. The blonde girl with a hesitant and forced smile stammers that she can probably fix the phone while other students look at her worriedly. The protagonist sarcastically thanks Takita for breaking his phone earlier. Angrily, the bully yells, asking what good it will do to fix the phone, only to be rebutted by Tuya, who says that with the repair they could use the internet to learn more about the situation. Additionally, they could talk to other survivors and gather information about emergency shelters. As he speaks, hope begins to show on the faces of the other students. Koten asks Sakura about the computers, who responds that like the phones, they are all fried. The rescued girl says that doesn't make sense, but Kuju explains that even though they were off, when the monsters appeared, the connection terminals were destroyed. Grabbing her blonde hair with her hands, the girl says this phenomenon makes her head hurt. Despite being worried, Nishi tries to stay focused and says that only the phone that was already broken before the chaos started has a chance of accessing the internet. He adds that the top priority should be to contact others who were as lucky as Rakuto. Rakuto agrees. With the goal of finding the right tools, the boy with the steel pipe asks Sakura if the best place is really the general discount store. Despite looking doubtful, the girl says it seems like a good idea. Two frightened girls join the conversation and suggest that everyone should head there immediately to look for weapons and food. Sensei Wayama yells for them to wait, saying he's against the plan because it's too dangerous. Karavian retorts, saying that if they don't go sooner or later, they'll succumb. The teacher, indignant, stresses that there's a possibility of rescue before the worst happens. The teacher, starting an argument, warns that there are monsters everywhere, and the boy refutes, saying that fortunately the story isn't far from here. Rikuto emphasizes that if they go by car, the plan should work and begs Sensei to take them. The teacher makes a terrified expression at the request. Tuya says this is the only way, as it's less dangerous than going on foot. Terrified, the teacher, in denial, pleads for them to reconsider the plan. He yells that going is out of the question because he needs to protect the students and that it's for their benefit as well. Concerned, the boy with the bow reflects that this is a problem. Shocking everyone, Kotan stands up and decisively says that she knows and will drive. Nishi, surprised, asks how she knows how to drive without a license, and she explains that when she was younger, her grandfather used to let her drive his truck all the time on his farm. Her boyfriend, enraged, joins the discussion to stop her, that the girl tells him to stay out of it. Karavian asks if she's sure about this since it's deadly outside and even inside the car, it might not be safe, which makes the girl anxious. The long-haired girl replies that she doesn't want to meet her end, but at this rate, she has no idea what's really happening and doesn't want it to end this way. She adds that if there's even the slightest chance, it's better to try. The boy with the steel pipe, with the look of admiration, says he understands her and is counting on her and her strength. Her boyfriend becomes furious. That's when Ouyama, equally enraged, punches the chopboard, startling the students and demanding to know why they are making decisions without him. Yelling, he declares that he is the teacher, responsible for protecting the students, and that he will not allow them to do whatever they want. Nishi tries to intervene, saying something needs to be done, but the man, filled with anger, tells him to shut up. As the students listen in fear, the teacher continues shouting, calling Tuya just a brat and insisting that everyone should do only what he says. Wait, he adds that if they ration the food, it will last a week, that everyone should wait for rescue, and questions whether the students can't see. This is the best course of action. The Kuda counters, asking why the teacher doesn't realize it's a terrible idea. The man scolds him for speaking that way, but the boy persists, questioning where it's actually safe and whether the teacher has seen the monsters. Blue slime begins dripping from the ceiling as the student declares there is no safe place. It lands on Tani. Tani begins screaming for help as the monster takes over his body, terrifying everyone. That's when Kurogen charges at the creature with his steel pipe, shouting that common sense doesn't apply to these things and that there is no safe place. He adds, as he strikes the slime directly, that sitting and waiting will only make things worse. The students question what that thing is as the boy fights the monster. Tani, panicking, continues pleading for help. The Kudo says he's working on a solution and tells him to hold on as he grabs a large blanket. He shouts for Nishi, who responds that he understands. The students observe that the slime can dissolve human flesh, but not synthetic fibers and clothing. Then, in a coordinated effort, counting 1, 2, 3, one throws the blanket, while the other pulls Tani out of the monster. Kunju, terrified, asks if they really managed to get the creature off Tani. The boy with the steel pipe, despite landing many blows, realizes his fear has come true. The monster hasn't taken any damage. He recalls that in most games, slimes are resistant to physical attacks and only vulnerable to magic. He gets the idea to set the creature on fire, but Tuya doesn't know how. Sakura then appears with a flammable liquid, pours it on the slime, and lights a match. She hopes it works. A large explosion occurs. The girl notices the monster has evaporated, and Rikuto remarks that fire appears to be its weakness, and thanks her for the help. He then remembers Tani, but Nishi informs him that, unfortunately, they were too late. Takeda, kneeling on the ground, desperately calls his friend's name. Sensei appears confused, wondering what just happened, and the hero asks if he now understands the gravity of the situation. That if they had been slower, everyone could have ended up like Tani, angrily questioning if they're really going to stay there waiting for a rescue that might never come. The teacher collapses to the ground, lamenting, and says he doesn't understand, and that the students can do whatever they want. Leaving the school, Tuya, Kirigen, Kuju, and Takabana eliminate all the monsters they encounter along the way. The four decide to hurry before more threats appear. They find Wayama's car and hand the key to Kotan. She notices that the car isn't manual, and Nishi asks if she knows how to drive it. The girl says yes, but admits she's more accustomed to manual transmission. The brown hair boy laughs in relief and praises her. Interrupting the moment, Sakura asks if she really has to go. The archer says it's obvious she does, as she's the only one who knows the parts and tools needed to fix the phone. Sweating nervously and laughing awkwardly, the girl agrees. The blonde gets into the car, sighing and lamenting in her thoughts about having lived a short life, while Tuya wonders what she's carrying in her backpack. Stego appears and declares he's coming too, as it's his job to protect Takabana. The archer warns him not to start any problems, and Seda retorts that there's no need to worry, and that he's not that stupid. Already in the car, he adds that like everyone else, he doesn't want to succumb, and will do whatever it takes to ensure that doesn't happen. Nishi notices Shigeru's jealous expression as he looks at his girlfriend and Rikudo, and hopes he won't do anything stupid. The girl in the driver's seat asks if everyone is ready and starts the car. Tuya, excited, replies yes, and says everyone is counting on her. Sakura says she's fine, but silently lemons that she didn't want to go. The protagonist says everything is set and they head toward their destination. From the school, the others watch them leave. Then a student suggests they hurry and start burning the bodies on the rooftop, following Kurogene's recommendations. Senseiga Uyama, holding a type of sword, strikes the ground furiously and tells the girl to shut up. Angrily, he says he doesn't want to hear about the boy anymore, and he can handle the corpses when he returns because he's the one in charge. He ends by saying that everyone should only do what he tells them to. Somewhere in the city at the same time, the team of warriors drives through streets infested with monsters that try to attack them as soon as they hear the engine roar. Tachibana, panicking, runs over one of the creatures and Rikudo praises her, comforting her. Nishi, observing through the sunroof, says driving was the right choice because the smaller monsters can't reach them. His expression changes to worry when he spots a massive creature and asks the driver to change course. Sakura, holding the map, tells Kotan to go back to the last four-way intersection and turn right. The protagonist, sitting in the passenger seat, says everyone is counting on her while her boyfriend in the backseat watches angrily. Through the sunroof, the hero with the bow observes enormous flying monsters and wolf-like creatures devouring people on the streets. He shouts that it feels like the world has ended. Kurogane asks if there are any signs of survivors, and the boy responds no. The blonde girl says she suspects suspects other people might be alive somewhere else hiding, and that they're the abnormal ones for venturing out like this. Staku suddenly orders them to stop the car. His girlfriend complies and asks what's wrong. Tuya asks if he saw something. The boy points ahead and says that about 50 meters away there's likely a convenience store where they could find food. It continues and asks if they shouldn't check it out. Kuju agrees. Rikuto from the front seat points out that there should also be food at their destination, but the boy snaps back saying no one asked him. Shinjuru questions if the protagonist is going to say it's too dangerous, and Rikuto counters by asking if his opinion doesn't count. The boy in the back seat, already irritated, retorts that just because Rikuto took the initiative to fight monsters doesn't mean he needs to act like the leader. Mishi joins the discussion saying that Kurvagami is merely expressing his opinion, prompting Sakura to agree and say everyone should get along. Tachibana also scolds her boyfriend, who grumbles under his breath. Meanwhile, the archer reflects on what they should do, since there's no guarantee they'll find food at the destination, especially if it's full of monsters. His thoughts are interrupted when the boy in the passenger seat says there's no perfect choice or answer. He continues emphasizing that he doesn't even know if leaving was the right decision, but now that the dice have been rolled, he plans to give it his all. He concludes by saying he trusts his friend's judgment, and that whatever happens, he won't complain. Tuya, taking charge, says food is essential, that they should seize every opportunity to gather supplies, and asks if everyone agrees. 5 minutes later, they arrive at Honolulu Coffee, and ask Shinjuru this is the right place. He confirms Sakura tells them to be careful, and Mishi says that if something feels wrong, they'll leave. Entering the place, they're met with empty shelves. However, the protagonist points out one good thing: there don't seem to be any monsters in the store. The hero with the bow reflects that if there's no food, it's because other survivors or creatures have already taken everything. Kurogen finds some canned food that appears untouched. They decide to gather as many useful items as they can find. 15 minutes later, they gathered a good amount of supplies in bags and look on satisfied. That's when Seidu hears a noise coming from behind a door. They open it and ask if anyone is there, but they find no one, just a cardboard box that seems to contain bread. The boys stare at the box, intrigued and confused. Shinjuru approaches and confirms that what's inside the box is indeed bread, getting excited about finding food. Rikuto, concerned, asks him to wait. The boy, irritated, asks what's wrong and emphasizes that he's the one who found the supplies. The hero with the steel pipe counters saying something feels off, and he continues questioning if it's not strange that there's blood around the box, and if it doesn't seem like something happened there. Still irritated, the other guy asks something like, "What could have happened there?" And the protagonist replies that he doesn't know, but draws attention to something written on the ground. Saying he feels a bad sensation, he warns that it's better to stay away from the box. The boy in the gray vest, in a mocking and irritated tone, states that he knows the other is saying this, but will come back later in secret to take the box and steal the credit. Nishi calls his attention. Holding the box with both hands, the guy shouts that he was the one who found it, and that the box is his. Abruptly, a large red eye appears and stares at Siktu, who becomes terrified. He drops the box forcefully to the ground and screams. The girls in the car hear the scream and, frightened, wonder what's happening. That's when Sakura asks to duck down and hide. Monsters that look like giant lizards carrying spears with heads on the tips appear, making some kind of growling noise. Scared, the girls huddle inside the car. Meanwhile, a creature with 1 eye and 9 tentacles attacks the boys inside the store. Rikuto charges at it with his steel pipe and hits it squarely, while the boy in the vest watches with an irritated expression. The protagonist, panting and looking at the box, concludes that the monster must be a mimic, and it reminds him of a creature he had only seen in a game. Nishi shouts, alerting that something is happening outside. The hidden boys observe the fantastic being standing still. Kurigan says that the being seems to be a lizard man who came to investigate something, and his friend says that's bad since there are many of them. Seeing that they haven't been spotted, both decide to wait for the monsters to move on because they couldn't handle 5 of them. Tuya wonders if the girls are okay. One of the lizard men approaches the car and breaks the window with his spear. Kuntan screams, and the boys, terrified, don't know what to do now, and that the girls have been discovered, and decide to go forward together. All 3 of them. Seidu, terrified, can't move, and the boys decide to go without him. Kuju, being pulled out of the car, tries to convince the monster by shouting that she isn't appetizing. Outside the vehicle, they face their imminent end when suddenly one of the monsters is taken down. Rikudo appears with his steel pipe, bravely striking the creatures. He shouts to Tachibana to take care of Sakura, and if things go wrong, to leave him behind and escape with Nishi. Surrounded by 3 lizard men, the protagonist finds himself cornered. That's when an arrow hits one of the monsters and brings it down. Tubiya, hidden, thinks that if he's discovered, he'll lose his advantage, and 1 against 3 will be too much much, just as his friend had said. The boy hero wonders if this will be his end, and fighting, he refuses to fall. A boy appears on the roof of the store and hits one of the monsters directly with the rocks, surprising Rikuto. He continues throwing rocks with all his might while Nishi shoots his arrows. Another boy with platinum hair appears and takes down another creature with brass knuckles. Even without knowing those boys, Kurogane seizes the chance to finish off the lizard men. Seeing all of them defeated the protagonist, thanks one of the unknown boys for saving his skin. The girls, happy to have found other survivors, run toward them while Tubiya notices that these boys are from the same school because of their uniforms. Remembering that the place is dangerous, he says everyone must leave quickly. Tachibana then tells everyone to get in the car, and the boy throwing rocks is surprised that she can drive. 10 minutes pass and the strangers introduce themselves. The red-haired boy says his name is Aiz Tavada, and his friend is called Yamaka Takashi Senpei. Then he points to what he calls a secret base, a large hotel named Hotel Love. Getting out of the car, the group of friends is shocked and wonders if this is real. Aiz, excited, says it's a sensible place to take refuge, since there wouldn't be many people around, meaning there wouldn't be many phones from which the monsters could emerge. The boy, noticing to his reaction, steps forward and says that he and his friend do not have a strained relationship. The hero of the bow says that wasn't what he thought. He continues and suggests that they exchange information. Seitu, irritated, tells them to do whatever they want. Confused, the two boys seem bothered by his attitude, but Nishi says not to mind the boy who's just a little nervous. Tada then says there's not much to say. He was returning from school when he was attacked, and trusting his speed managed to stay ahead of the monsters. However, he ended up surrounded, and that's when Yamaka appeared and saved him. The boy says his friend is very strong, that it was he who found the hotel, and that without him, he wouldn't still be breathing. It's then that the hero of the arrows realizes he has heard of the boy with platinum hair before. Recalling, he affirms he heard that Takeshi is a hardcore delinquent, that Takeda and his gang were nothing compared to him. His crimes involved a lot of violence, drunk trafficking, connections with the Yakuza, and even the murder of people. Still lost in thought, he thinks that now the rumors don't seem true as he observes the friendship Takeshi has with Aiz. Returning to the conversation, the green-eyed boy recounts that monsters were everywhere, that they went out looking for food and ended up meeting the group at the store. Rikujo then asks if it was the boys who left the warning near the cardboard box in the store, but they claim not to know what he's talking about. The hero of the steel pipe, embarrassed, says to let it go. Tauda then says that's all they know and asks if Nishi knows anything else. On their way to the interior of the hotel, the boy tells the entire story from the beginning, and the green-eyed boy feels relieved to learn there are still safe people at school. Full of hope, he asks if by fixing Kurigane's phone they'll be able to call for help, but to less optimistic admits the chances are slim. Interrupting the conversation, Rikujo gets straight to the point and questions what the two boys plan to do next, adding that it's okay if they don't want to join them. Sakura then says, disappointed that in her case, she was indeed forced to go while the boys look on puzzled. Yamaka says you will go with them, surprising his friend Tauda. The boy continues saying he will hold anyone back, but will be a neat shield. Nishi then says that having him along will be very helpful. Teishi then asks his friend what he wants to do and says that if he wants to go to school, that's fine. The same responds that if Teishi goes, he'll go too, and he adds that he's a man too and needs to do something. Kurigane, happy, says to the hero of the arrows that it's good they stop at the convenience store, and he agrees. Contradicting the boys, Yamaka then says their plan is very reckless since many people live in the area, and the number of monsters will be much higher. Therefore, they need an entry plan to know where it's safe, where it's dangerous, and that being cautious is mandatory. He continues saying that protecting the key player in the plan, Kuju, must be the priority. She is surprised by his statement. The two of heroes agrees that they were Heisei and don't want things to go wrong because they rushed. The platinum-haired boy then says he won't handle the details of the main plan, that he's just a soldier, and they can use him however they want. A brainstorming session then begins for the construction of the final plan. Seidu is excluded in the corner. After the meeting, everyone returns to the car and makes repeated trips, focusing solely on finding a safe route, and even with obstacles along the way, working together, they manage to overcome them. After several days, they reach their final destination. Rikudo says that if they had rushed, they wouldn't become monster food. The girls feel relieved to have arrived, and Sakura says it feels like centuries since she's been to that place. Yamaka notices his friend Aiza's legs trembling, and he says it's the tremor of excitement from a warrior entering battle. Everyone moves forward while Seidu lingers behind. Kurogen tells everyone to stay alert, and Nishi adds that from now on, they will face challenges as they come. Outside, the school flying monsters dominate the ground and the skies. One of the students reveals that the survivors have been feeding on pieces of bread. Sitting on the floor, a boy with his hands on his head in a state of breakdown wonders how much longer they'll have to keep living like this. Two Bribbles are talking, and one of them wonders if Sakura is okay since they haven't heard from them since everyone left. Enomoto, feeling hungry, approaches the teacher who is sitting and devouring an entire loaf of bread. The girl, pleading, asks if it wouldn't be possible to share a little more as everyone is very hungry. The sensei, irritated, slams his weapon on the ground and orders her to forget about it. Angrily, he stands up and shouts that they don't understand how precious food is at the moment and tells the girl to shut up and do as he says. Takeda, upset, mutters to his friend that while they are starving, Oyama is stuffing himself with food. Still trying to reason, the young girl warns that at this rate they won't last until the others return, but the man retorts that the group has probably already become monster food. Worried, Enomoto says that such a statement is a horrible thing to say, and that the young people only went out to help everyone. The teacher, with a dark expression and holding the girl by the waist, says that if she does something for him, he'll make a special exception. Distressed, the girl screams for him to stop. The man laughs and says he was just trying to lighten the mood. Angrily, the bullies observe the situation. Meanwhile, as the survivors approach their limit on the school roof, a pile of bodies is being devoured by creatures. At the same time, Rikuto's group is walking through an area that appears to be free of threats. The hero with the steel pipe questions what it all means, and Nishi responds saying there must be a large creature somewhere. He adds that there are many types of monsters, but in areas where a very powerful aberration is present, the number of smaller creatures is lower. Such aberrations are like bosses in games. Confused, the hero tries to understand why the monsters are the same as those in video games and says that thanks to that, naming them won't be a problem. Karavian agrees with his friend and says someone must know the names. He replies that there must be some sort of governing rule. Refocusing, Yamaka states that achieving their goal is the priority for now. Sometime later, the group arrives on a floor with electronics tools and chemical products. Koju runs toward the shelves extremely happy and says she's going to live there while Tachibana laughs. Dividing tasks, Rikuto asks Eyes and Kotone to help the tech girl, and then both agree with that hesitation. Seikyu and Nishi are assigned to protect the three. The steel pipe hero and the boy with platinum hair are tasked with patrolling the area. Admiring the products, such as Korra, starts strategizing how to modify the devices. Trying to understand, her friend questions what she's doing, and she responds that she's going to replace the CPU of the broken phone with what she just found. Smelling the solder, the girl gets excited and asks Tachibana if she feels the same, while Tauta feels embarrassed by her behavior. On guard, the two boys keep watch while Karavian walks through the eerily silent place, which unsettles him. That's when he finds a note stuck to his shelf saying that they eliminate intruders, which intrigues him. The boy notices that it's the same handwriting as the warning written on the floor of the first store. Suddenly, footsteps are heard, and an enormous creature that appears to be made of stone. The glowing light where its neck would be approaches and announces that a heat source has been detected. Reflecting and looking at the monster, the hero analyzes and concludes that it's a golem. Preparing to attack, the humanoid roars that an intruder has been identified and must be eliminated. It charges at Rikuto, who quickly counters with his weapon. However, the monster dodges the blow, surprising him with its speed. Striking again, the boy lands a solid hit on the golem. Reflecting, he realizes that the attack is ineffective against the creature. Just as Karavian is about to be hit directly, Takeshi appears and delivers a powerful punch to the stone being. The golem falls, but quickly gets back up, growling. Frustrated, Yamoko, without hitting the core, would defeat it. Here's Rikuto suggest that they cautiously search for a weak point. Taking the lead, the brass knuckle hero struck his friend to follow his commands, and he agreed. A hand-to-hand fight begins with the boy with platinum hair dodging blows and landing multiple punches. Watching the combat, his partner admires his strength while wondering if this is boxing. He thinks that even among professionals, it's rare to find someone so strong. But then he grows concerned upon noticing that the monster is resistant to this type of impact. The golem strikes the head of the brass knuckle hero, causing him to start bleeding. This makes his friend realize the situation is dire as they are losing their advantage. Having a memory lapse, Karavian finally understands what the note meant and shouts for Takeshi to retreat. Using all his strength, the boy strikes the head of the stone being with his steel pipe. The monster shatters completely, leaving Yamelka puzzled about what just happened, asking what's going on and whether the boys are okay. The rest of the group comes running. Nishi questions what happened to that pile of stones, and his friend responds that it was a golem. Shocked, the hero of the arrows asks if Rikuto defeated it. He replies that he did, remembering a game where the answer was in the monster's head. Tuya, excited, says the adventure is becoming more and more fantastic. Seiju tries to downplay the victory, asking if it was just a small creature, but Takeshi denies it. He then praises the steel pipe hero, saying he's impressed by his ability to read movements and notice the letters on the monster's head using his kinetic vision. He concludes by saying the boy is someone he can trust to help, and his friend thanks him. Aiz appears and also praises his friend, saying he wants Yamelka to trust him too. Shinjuru shows irritation. The Bao hero then says that now that the enemy is defeated, everyone can return to work. Noticing the thoughtful expression on Karavian's face, the boy asks what's wrong, and his friend responds that the creature seems too weak to be the boss. A large purple sphere begins rushing toward the group at high speed. Sakura, sensing danger, asks if a noise doesn't sound like it's getting closer. The giant sphere suddenly appears above the escalator, catching everyone off guard. Nishi wonders if it's another boulder, but the blonde girl, confused, says it doesn't make sense since they're inside a store. Before Tachibana is hit, the steel pipe hero saves her. The sphere then reveals a large, glowing purple eye. Standing up, it transforms into a massive humanoid with the eye in the middle of its chest. Rikuto tells his bow-wielding friend that this one is definitely the boss, and he's sweating profusely. Stammers, saying it's bad news. Speaking the same words as the smaller stone golem, the purple creature says it needs to eliminate the intruders. With its massive arm, it tries to crush the group, but hits the ground instead, creating a large hole. Due to the creature's size, the steel pipe hero says it will be very difficult to hit the letters on the golem's head. Tuya steps forward and shouts for his friend to leave it to him. Then, shooting his arrows, he tries to hit the engraved letter on the stone. Without success, the boy realizes he couldn't even scratch the surface, and Kuju, terrified, questions whether it's fair. Worrying loudly, the golem seems to prepare to shoot a purple energy beam. The blonde girl notices what's about to happen, and the bow hero yells for everyone to get out of there. Kurogan, panicking, shouts for everyone to run. They all start running desperately, and that's when the monster releases its power toward what seems to be the steel pipe hero. A large hole opens in the ground where the beam hit, now ablaze. 4 of them manage to hide behind a wall, panting and terrified. While Rikuto is shocked by the creature's power, Tachibana asks if Nishi is okay, but unfortunately, her friend holding him says the attack left him severely injured. The girl wonders if her other friends are okay, and Rikuto, despite being worried, says that for now, they need to do what they can. The boy suggests everyone head to the underground parking lot, and that if the others are okay, they can meet them there. Setu, however, dislikes the idea. Irritated and afraid, he starts yelling that there's no way to reach the stairs without the monster seeing them. Kurogane, however, agrees and says there's no way to get there without leaving his friend behind, something he absolutely won't do. The creature keeps approaching, making a lot of noise. Confused, they watch as the steel pipe hero takes action. Leaving the hiding spot, he decides to face the monster head on. While distracting it, he signals for the others to run toward the stairs. Thinking about the creature's attack as he runs, he concludes that it reacts to heat and aggression. So if the others reach the stairs, it must throw the flare he gave to his friends. This way, if it distracts the golem even for a brief moment, he'll be able to get out of there safely. However, if the monster sees them, everything will be over. This is the only way for everyone to get out of that situation unharmed. Kotan shouts to let them know she's ready, and Rikuto gives the signal for her to throw the flare. As the girl is about to throw it, her boyfriend interferes and the flare rolls down the staircase, ruining the plan. In a panic, Tachibana questions Setu, who says he had to do it because the monster could have turned on them before she threw the object. The monster then hits Kurogane directly. Slamming against the wall, the boy cries out in pain. His worried friend screams for him, and he tells her to stay where she is. He says not to worry about him, and to get out of there to take care of Nishi. He also warns the girl's boyfriend that he better take care of her, and Shinjuru mutters angrily. Cynically, the boy says they should leave, and then it's too late for Rikuto, which angers the girl. Surprising everyone, she punches the boy in the face. He falls to the ground, shocked, as she runs to help the steel pipe hero. Facing the golem, which seems to be charging its power, the boy, panting, appears to confront imminent doom. Alone, the boy says he's given his all since that faithful day, but in the end, he can't do anything, and he remembers his late brother. He comes to the conclusion that his brother was right. Kotan appears, and with great agility, grabs the boy, pulling him out of the path of the beam. Dazed, he doesn't understand what's happening, as the girl clings to him and they fall to the ground. He warns her that what she did was very irresponsible. Grabbing his collar, she shouts, questioning how he could give up like that, and she continues saying that he's not like this. Confused, he asks how she knows. The Kudro then remembers that in childhood he had saved the girl from a group of boys, and that no matter what, he kept fighting. Standing up with his steel pipe in hand, he prepares to fight because he realizes that in the end, they are still alive. An arrow suddenly strikes the monster, which looks back and sees the group reunited, including Nishi, who seems to be better. The sight makes Kurgan and Tachibana happy. Ai says he was worried when they left them downstairs, but that they're okay, and Takeshi apologizes for the delay. Thus, everyone prepares for a massive counterattack. Tachibana and Rikuto stand in front of a monster. The boy tries to strike his opponent with his weapon and succeeds. Nishi is accompanied by another man and watches the scene while the boy with the sword says he's thinking of retreating, but isn't sure if he should. A loud noise occurs. There's someone knocking on the door, which grabs the attention of the people in the the room. They realize it's the small golems coming up from the lower floor. The noise intensifies and scares Sakura, who defines it as a desperate situation. Nishi asks for Kudo what they should do and says that if things continue like this, they're finished. Quickly, the protagonist tells the young man to keep shooting, and if the boy keeps shooting at the same target, he'll succeed. The boy with the arrows calls the monster an idiot and asserts that it won't last much longer. Rikudo says he needs to defeat it because he's still alive. The other students watch the scene terrified. The word alive catches Sakura's attention. Stammering, the girl calls out to Kurogan Nishi. She states that she might be able to do something but needs a little time. Kuju says they might not believe her, but she can manage to defeat the monster. Rikudo encourages his friend and says he believes in her, so he'll buy her some time. With tears in her eyes, says Kuro knows what she needs to do. She gets emotional hearing the boy say he trusts her, and he confirms saying she's not the type of person who would lie. The protagonist calls Mishi to come closer to him, and the boy quickly obeys. Suspicious, a blonde boy asks if Kuju can really do what she's thinking, and she says yes because Rikudo trusts her, and because of that she can't fail. Yamaoka says it'll help the boys and asks Eyes to assist the girls. The monster is on the verge of attacking everyone in its frustration. Sakura crouches down and starts preparing the chemical potions. Kotan approaches and asks if her friend is okay, noting that she's trembling a lot, but the young girl tells her to be quiet. In a quick move, the monster tries to attack Kurogan, but he dodges. Nishi asks Kuju to act quickly. The girl says she's almost finished and explains how the experiment works, doubting she'll manage it. She recalls Rikudo's words saying he trusts her. Quickly, the girl adds the final ingredient. The potion is ready, much to the girl's joy. Sakura warns Kotanma never to mess with chemicals as they are very dangerous. The next step is to throw the product at the monster's head, which will defeat it. Tabashina asks how they could hit the monster's head, leaving Kuju desperate. The little girl calls herself an idiot, realizing she hadn't thought of that, but Eyes grabs the product. The boy runs with it in hand and asks if all he has to do is throw it at the monster's head. He says he's on the baseball team and will manage it. Sakura urges him to be careful with the liquid, leaving everyone anxious. The giant opponent approaches quickly. Nishi becomes frustrated as he sees the monster getting closer. Suddenly, an explosion occurs right on the monster's head. A sword-wielding boy is startled, wondering if that's as far as they've gotten. Eyes arrives running with the chemical product and apologizes for the delay. He says it's a special delivery directly from Kanju. In one swift motion, he throws the vial toward the monster's head. Kutan asks her friend what she added, and Kuju explains it was just some chemical reactions, but she admits she added nitrate and sulfuric acid to glycerin, creating nitroglycerin. Before she finishes explaining, a massive explosion occurs. Everyone nearby is flung away. Eyes watches, his eyes shining with amazement of the feat. With smoke rising, the monster remains standing, and everyone observes it. The baseball boy questions Kuju about the explosion, and she explains about the nitroglycerin. She continues explaining the component and her invention, comparing it to dynamite. Sweating nervously, everyone looks at her with half-desperate expressions. They scold her, saying she should have explained what it was beforehand. With a shout, someone calls for Sakura. The boys watch the scene of the explosion, and Rikuto concludes that, thanks to it, the area is now completely charred. Nishi says they defeated the monster, but warns it was a bit reckless on Kuju's part, who promises to be more careful next time. The protagonist heads toward the door, while being watched by his bow-wielding friend. It warns there might be danger if the boy opens the door. However, upon opening it, the duo finds all the golems reduced to dust, and Rikuto says he hasn't heard any banging on the door since the explosion. Nishi wonders if the monsters exploded because their leader was defeated, and his friend believes so even though it doesn't make much sense. The protagonist goes to Sakura and asks if she managed to grab the parts for the phone, and the girl says only the bare minimum. He thanks her, saying that, thanks to her, everyone was saved, leaving the girl emotional. Concerned, the bow boy says they shouldn't stay in the area long, and everyone decides to leave as quickly as possible. A kiss happens. Upon re-entering the room, Rituku notices that Sagu tried to kiss Kotom, but the girl slapped him. The ex tries to explain, saying he had no choice, but the girl is furious. She says she doesn't care, and hopes the boy won't come near her again. Nishi approaches and asks what happened between the two. Sagu leaves the room despondent, walking past his friends, unable to believe what just occurred. He screams and runs up the stairs. Realizing the danger, the bow boy shouts for him not to go too far because there's still danger in the building. Ignoring him, Sagu keeps running upstairs, thinking only of Kurugan. On the verge of a breakdown, The boy enters one of the rooms, pacing back and forth, thinking that Kotom belongs only to him, and that it's all Rituku's fault. He adds that Rituku should die and kicks several nearby boxes. Clearing the boxes out of the way, Sagu discovers a coffin with the sword embedded in it. A note attached to the object warns that it's sealed and not to touch it, leaving the boy puzzled as to why it's in the storage room. He examines the scene and everything within it, from the coffin to the blade, and the note warning not to open it. In a reckless act, he removes the silver blade. The sound starts emanating from inside the coffin. The boy looks in shock as a skull appears, emitting red lightning from its eyes. Desperate, he wonders what is happening, but the skeletal hand moves toward him quickly. Nishi is outside and says he warned the boy about the dangers of venturing alone through the building. While searching and calling for Seitu, someone approaches, catching their attention. The two boys look and realize it's the person they were searching for, and they ask if he's been there the whole time. Annoyed by the situation, the arrow-wielding boy scolds him and tells Kotom's ex to at least respond when they call him. After the scolding, the boy says they should all head back since they've done what they came to do. Nishi notices that the boy is in a good mood and finds it strange. The white-haired man accompanying them wonders if he was imagining things for not noticing the boy's presence behind them the entire time. Later, everyone returns to the base, and Sakura says she already feels that the place is her own home. Elsewhere, someone is in front of a computer celebrating having achieved something. It's Kuju, and everyone is happy to see that she has managed to use the cell phone. After working on the device in a computer, the girl finally gets online. AI says it's incredible what she just did. Rikudo asks her to check if there's any information about nearby survivors or emergencies. She checks social media and says that since the day of the monsters appeared, there have been no updates from anyone. Something catches Kuju's attention. Someone in the city of Amishima posted asking for help a few days ago, suggesting they might be survivors. The protagonist says the location is far, but not so far that they couldn't reach it. Kotom says there's a glimmer of hope after the turbulent days, and Seidu overhears everything nearby. Close to the scene, the boy feels uneasy hearing the conversation, and a shadow was shown near him. Nishi states that tomorrow they will inform everyone at the school about going to Amishima to search for more survivors. Noise has come from the school building. It's coming from one of the laboratories, and the sounds grow louder. Owen is lying down, and Uyama tries to attack her with only their shadows shown. She pleads to be let go, while the man holding a knife says it doesn't matter what she does. Nothing good will come of it. Terrifyingly, the man standing over the girl says it's a beautiful sight he's seeing. He adds that it's like heaven on earth. A flashback is shown. Several bird-shaped monsters approach the school. They go to the rooftop and eat the remains of the corpses left there. Noises occur, and someone asks about Uyama. Two boys approach the teacher and ask if he's trying to starve them. The other students notice the tension and wonder what they should do. One of the boys shouts that he asked for food to be brought, and Uyama responds that there wasn't any. It's called a liar, and they accuse him of hiding food. Takeda, holding a baseball bat, says that if things continue this way, there's no telling what he might do. Uyama tells the boys to forget about it, and declares that he won't allow them to act like that under any circumstances. As a teacher, he says his decisions are absolute, and everyone must shut up and obey him. One of the students punches the older man. He falls to the ground from the force of the blow, and the argument continues with demands about the food. Uyama remains silent, and the student says that's one of the things he hates most, losing control. The boy continues cursing the teacher and attempts to hit him again. Blood splatters across the room. Nishi, Rikuto, and Kotan notice what's happening and are shocked. The teacher stabs the aggressor in the abdomen of the knife. Screaming in pain, the boy is paralyzed by what has just happened. Desperate, the protagonist shouts at the sight of the scene as Uyama pulls out the knife. Takeda starts trembling with fear as the man moves toward him. Without hesitation, the teacher keeps approaching the other student. He states that bad people like them mean more disciplined education and attempts to stab the blonde boy. More blood splatters across the room. Back in the present, Uyama is shown carrying the girl from the room on his shoulder. He takes her to a room where a group of people is alive and others are dead, announcing that he has returned. Mocking the man, asks why the other students are cowering in the corner. Terrifyingly, the teacher throws the girl to the ground and says she's back home again. Still holding the knife, he declares that the girl was exceptionally beautiful. He approaches Kasahara and says she will be next. Terrified, the girl says that instead of her, he could take Riko. Her friend becomes outraged upon realizing that Kasahara is offering her, and Kasahara retorts that Riko is just another Sarka fan. Impatient, Uyama stabs the knife into the ground, scaring both girls. He calls the two young women and says they are both good for listening to him. The two agree. Hayashi approaches, but the boy is trembling with fear. When questioned about what he is doing, he insists it's nothing. Uyama warns the boy not to try anything, pointing to the other dead students. The boy says he never even thought of it, and the teacher calls him an obedient child. Quickly, the man grabs Kasahara by the arm. He also grabs Kasamoto. The girls desperately cry for help, help, begging someone to save them. Desperate, the brown-haired girl questions what kind of world she's living in. Without further words, Uyama drags the girl down the school corridor. During the journey, she curses the man. He slaps her heart and says she must call him sensei. Grabbing the girl by the hair, the teacher says she needs some extra education. Still mocking her, he ridicules her earlier question about the world, saying it's paradise when the girl claims it's hell. The girl continues in despair, screaming that the world is trash and might as well end. As she's dragged by her hair, the young woman wonders how she never realized this before. Uyama reaches his destination and freezes in front of the girl. Something catches the man's attention, and he looks out the window. He sees his car arriving and knows very well what that means. Rikuto's group has returned to the school. Nishi says he hopes they've brought some peace of mind to the people still there. A young girl observing notices it's Kurigan and the others, and celebrates that they'll survive and escape the teacher's threats. Uyama turns pale and says it's impossible for the group to have survived, unsure of what to do. Not knowing what to do, the man claims it doesn't matter and says he'll eliminate the group. He believes the kingdom he's building doesn't need Rikuto. The group stands outside the school shouting for the others that they've returned and asking them to open the door. No one responds, and Nishi grows concerned. They start banging on the door while the teacher watches from one of the windows. The man returns to the room where the other students are still shocked that the group survived. One of the students quietly calls out for Kurigan. Uyama says the group cannot discover that he killed the students. Otherwise, it will be the end of him. Thinking deeply, the teacher concludes the group doesn't know anything yet. Moreover, among the group, only Nishi and Kurigan are the hardest to deal with. He decides that if he can handle those two, Kuju and Tachibana can also be taken into his harem. Maliciously, the man moves toward the girls, dominating. He threatens them, saying if they value their lives, they shouldn't try anything funny. Outside, the group stands still as Nishi remarks how strangely quiet everything is and suggests something might be happening. He asks Rikuto what they should do. Determined, the protagonist agrees that something is wrong and says they should break in. The idea is to use the car to break the barrier enter the building. Nishi calls it a crazy and risky plan. Before they can act, Uyama opens the door and greets the students. Everyone is happy to see him alive and well. Fading friendliness, the teacher asks how things were outside the building. Unaware of the danger, Nishi says they managed to recover Sakara's phone and found survivors along the way. Eyes appears and says it's been a long time since he last saw the teacher. Uyama feels uneasy, knowing Eyes will also pose a problem for him, and that now there are 3 obstacles in his way. Trying to appear calm, the man says he's happy to see the boy alive. He plans to deal with Kurugan and Nishi first. Putting his plan into action, the man says he needs to talk to the boys in private and ask him to follow him. Sensing something is wrong, Nishi suggests the whole group should go. The teacher says it's fine, but insists he'd like to speak to the 2 boys alone first. Nishi agrees and calls for Rikuto. The duo follows Uyama, apologizing and saying they'll return shortly. Ai suggests that in the meantime, they bring the supplies inside the school. Stopping to think, Koten realizes that Setu is not with them. She asks if the boy might have entered the building without them. Meanwhile, Uyama leaves the 2 boys inside the building. Nishi notices something strange and questions if they aren't going too far. Feeding ignorance, the man says it's just around the corner, and they'll arrive while thinking that if he gets the boy's bow, the victory will be his. Everyone keeps walking. They arrive in a classroom and don't understand why. Nishi asks them to start the conversation while Uyama fiddles with a fire extinguisher. Before anything else, the man sprays the extinguisher's phone toward the students. The 2 complain that their eyes hurt while the man laughs. On it, we'll see properly the teacher takes advantage and rushes at the boys with a knife. Quickly, Rituko defends himself with his bat. A hand-to-hand fight between the 2 begins. Kurogane says it was a good attempt, but his suspicions never fail. The protagonist states that he always knew who Uyama really was, and the man is confused about how he knew. He explains that he saw blood on the teacher's shirt, and when he last spoke with the man, the blood wasn't there. Kurogane goes on to say he doesn't know what happened while they were gone, but now he's sure the man has crossed the line. Scared, Uyama begins to stutter. The student grabs the man by the shirt and says that one day he'll be judged for what he's done. Annoyed, the teacher tries to respond and quickly attempts to attack the boy. He throws a punch, but Rituko defends himself and sends the man flying across the room. Meanwhile, the birds remain on the school's rooftop. Seigu enters the location and observes the scene of bodies being eaten. The boy says this is exactly what he needed. Without hesitation, he gives orders for things to begin definitively. Inside the school, Tachibana and Sakura enter and find the girls tied up, starting to untie them. Everyone is completely happy to be freed from the ropes. Koton asks if those people are the the only survivors. Kuchu feels sad seeing the state many of her friends are in. Although freed, everyone says they lived through a nightmare in there. Tachibana also begins to cry at the sight of the situation and laments that it had to be a moment when they saw a glimmer of hope. She sees the bodies on the ground and declares it's all too cruel. The boys throw the tied-up teacher on the ground and ask how he could do such a thing. Nishi is outraged and says the teacher shouldn't have done that. Instead, he should have helped the other students. Without fear, Oyama laughs in the boy's face. Mockingly, the man asks if the boy really thinks he will be saved. He says the boy needs to face reality. He states that the world is no longer the same, that hope doesn't exist, and that everyone will eventually die eaten by monsters. The man continues, saying that's why he did what he did, to have a little fun before it all ends since he won't be punished. Recklessly, he suggests the boy should do the same as him and kidnap Tachibana and Kuju to the girl's horror. Nishi tells the man to shut up and punches him. Interrupting the blows, Rikuto asks his friend to just ignore the man. He says that paying attention to him is a waste of time and energy. The boy concludes that they won't be able to take the teacher with him. Hearing the conversation, a girl asks what they mean by that. Nishi says he forgot to mention it, but everyone must be saved. And thanks to the recovered phone, they were able to locate more survivors. The other students feel hopeful, calling their ray of light. Oyama becomes desperate upon hearing those words. Panicking, the teacher begins begging for forgiveness and pleads not to be left behind. He continues to beg, claiming he regrets his actions. Kotan calls him bold for thinking he would be saved after everything he's done. Akuro says they'll decide what to do with the teacher later, as they need to focus on other matters now. Nishi ends up agreeing with this. Suddenly, a blue light appears outside the building, surprising everyone. The boys are shocked and don't understand what's happening. At that moment, they look out the window. Numerous blue beams of light appear as birds fly and monsters take over the area. These monsters have faces resembling lizards, goats, and other animals. Nishi asks what it could be and whether the enemies are coming out of the lights, and Rikuto says it's the same phenomenon as before. Sakura wonders how this is possible, considering no one else has a cell phone. The protagonist orders everyone to get ready. Nishi is frightened, stating that the number of monsters keeps growing. Kotan asks what she should do. The birds feeding on the corpses begin entering the building, shattering the windows. Everyone panics at the horrifying scene. They try to defend themselves as best as they can. They urge Eyes to quickly get the people out of there and run. Rikuto says he won't die there and defends himself with his bat. He manages to strike the bird with great force. Dozens of monsters appear on the ground in front of the school. Inside the building, Takashi and the others are fighting them to clear a path. A man asks Tudo where the others are. Noticing he's alone, and the boy apologizes, saying they got separated somewhere. While still apologizing, a goblin appears at the window to attack him, but Nishi is quicker and shoots it with an arrow, telling him to focus on surviving. One of the winged monsters appears to attack the girls but bypasses Tachibana and heads towards Sakura. Frightened, Sakura freezes, but Rikuto intervenes and strikes the monster before it can do anything. He asks if she's okay, and she shyly responds that she is. The girl at the top of the stairs wonders if the monster ignored her. Nishi, worried, asks his friend what they'll do since the ground floor is infested with monsters. Looking down and seeing the creatures climbing, he remarks that at this rate they won't make it. The boy says if there's no way down, they should go up. He then shouts for everyone to run to the roof, and the archer asks if they're back to square one. Running up the stairs, Kurogen tells everyone not to split up and that they will survive together, and they all agree. Later, Hayashi is running from a giant spider, screaming that he doesn't want to die. Looking back, he realizes this is the end for him that doesn't want it to end there. Suddenly, a screen appears in front of him stating that his role is a hero, asking if he will accept the adventure with options for yes or no below. The boy hears a voice in his head and doesn't understand how he could be a hero. Shortly after, another message says the evil slaying sword is being generated. Staying the spider attacking him, he grabs the sword and slices it in half. The girls arrive shortly after and find the boy. He wonders if this is his power. Sakura celebrates behind him. They start praising him, and he becomes embarrassed. Rikuto and Nishi arrive shortly after, also praising him and celebrating. He thanks everyone and says he can protect them now. However, it was all an illusion, and in reality, Hayashi is in the spider's mouth being devoured while repeating the same words. On another floor, one of the girls is being grabbed and cries for help from her friend. The friend says they're not friends and wishes for her to perish. Shortly after, another monster appears behind the girl and attacks her before she notices. The other, witnessing the scene, wonders what kind of world this is. In the bathrooms, the teacher says he wants to live and needs to survive to build his paradise. He is tied up in one of the stalls. Enomoto opens the door, saying she's found him, and he is startled to see her. She says that even tied up, he made it there, and that ending him is as hard as killing a cockroach. She then asks if he has any dream he wants to fulfill, and the man is confused. The girl says her dream was to find a true friend, yet marry and build a happy family. Holding a knife, she tells Uema she wanted to include him in that dream, but she can't anymore because he took that away from her and corrupted her. Terrified, the teacher begins begging. The man pleads for forgiveness, saying he'll take responsibility as she attacks him. She slashes his chest, and he falls. Smiling, the girl says he will indeed take responsibility, not just for her, but for the entire class. He is left on his own, surrounded by ghosts telling him they will end him. On the floor, the teacher begs to be spared, but is attacked again by the girl. Crying, she says that with this, he's paid the price at least a little, and that nothing matters anymore. However, she doesn't notice a monster behind her. Rikudo spots the rooftop door and alerts everyone. Nishik asks what they'll do once they're up there, and the boy responds they'll figure it out when they get there. Opening the door, they find Setu, who says he's been waiting for them. Everyone is happy to see him, and the archer asks if he's okay. He says all the actors are gathered, but he's been waiting for Kur again. The boy thanks everyone for reaching the rooftop and escorting Katan. Nishik, confused, asks about the escort and whether he hit his head, but his friend says something is wrong. Smilani comments that they were being cold, and with a monster behind him, he says he was on their side. Sakura, upon seeing the monster, begins screaming, asking what it is. Rikuto comments that the monster is a type of lich, and his friend responds that they're common in fantasy, and asks why it was with the student. Suguyu hears the conversation and replies that the monster was an ally, that in exchange it could use his body, and the lich granted him power that this flaw existed in the world, a summoning system. Smilani says that's not all they need to know. More importantly, he can make a circle appear in the sky. Then a stream of binary code descends, bringing several monsters to the rooftop, surrounding everyone and terrifying them. The group panics, wondering what to do. Kurogane realizes it's the same phenomenon that happened some time ago. Enveloped by monsters, Suguyu asks if they can see his power, and claims he has obtained the technique to control monsters. He explains that he can control small monsters, but soon will be able to dominate the more powerful ones. This means that as long as he's there, they no longer need to fear monsters. Looking at Koto, and he comments that he made her worry, but everything is fine now and she doesn't need to be afraid anymore. He tells her she doesn't need Kurogane to protect her anymore. However, the girl feels even more frightened. Extending his arms along with the lich, he asks the girl to live with him in this new world. She refuses, leaving the boy confused, but Tachibana says it's hard to believe, and asks if this is truly his power. The girl asks if he was the one who summoned the monsters that just attacked the students, and he admits it. He then comments that they attacked one of the girls in his class, and probably all the others. Seiga dismissively says he doesn't need anyone else but her. Nervous, the girl says she really didn't want to say this, but he is no longer human. Crying, she says they've encountered all kinds of monsters so far, but he is the worst of them all. The other students approach to support her. Crying and controlled, Seiga says Kotan is wrong, repeating the word wrong over and over. Still repeating the word, the boy screams, transforming into a vortex and emitting such a strong wind that all the students must shield themselves. When the spinning stops, it's clear the lich is fully taken over his body, replacing his head and arms with its own. It screams at the girl, accusing her of preferring Kurogen, but says she should be his. Then yelling that he doesn't need her, it commands the monsters to attack. Rikuto grabs his steel pipe and orders Kuju and Tachibana to stay back. He manages to block one of the attacks, but the girl, worried upon seeing him, doesn't notice the Oni behind her until Sakura warns her. The boy rushes toward them to stop the attack and succeeds, but his pipe is dented by the force of the impact. Then the monster throws him backward. Koten screams his name as he is hurled against the wall. Nishi, concerned, shouts his name and the girls run toward him. Getting closer, the girls worry upon seeing him in such a state. Touching his face, Tachibana notices he isn't breathing. Kurogen hears someone calling his name and realizes he's in his room, confused, because he was sure he was at school. He hears someone mocking him for calling that room his, and turns to see Serato at the door. Serato says it's been a long time since they've seen each other. Back at the school, Kotan screams his name and begs him to listen to her. Hugging him, she cries in desperation while the other students stand in shock. Nishi, fighting the monsters and concerned, asks if this is real and hopes it isn't true. As he lemons, a monster moves to attack him, but Takeshi pushes it away with a punch using his brass knuckles. The boy calls his name but gets no response at first. Without looking at him, he tells him not to give up, calling him a leader. He says that no matter the circumstances, they must keep fighting until the end, because that's the kind of man Kurogen is. Everyone is astonished and moved by his words. Nishi says he was right. Rakubura was always like that. No matter how hopeless the situation, he never gave up, and if he were to give up on surviving, he wouldn't be able to face him. With this in mind, he continues shooting his arrows at the monsters. Tuta begins, assisting in the attack. Sato, now under leisure control, tells them to forget it, saying that Kurogen was no longer among them. He declares that Kurogen's heart had stopped and comments that Kotan should know better than anyone's, and she wanted to be a doctor. Hearing those words, she decides to help the boy. Adjusting his body, she begins performing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, refusing to give up so easily. If the impact had stopped his heart, it couldn't be too late. Sakura thinks that everyone is doing what they can, so she must do something too. But unlike the time at the golem, she can no longer make dynamic and wonders what she could do. She notices the bent steel pipe on the ground, and thinking about the type of monster, the Liches concludes that she might be able to do something. However, she has no scientific evidence and isn't sure if it will work. But holding the object, she comments hopefully that there's nothing left but to try. Sato, watching everyone, asks what's so special about Rikudo. Hitting him with an arrow, Nishi responds that they like him, that they value him. Tuta tells Sato that jealousy isn't cool. Irritated, the Lich says he'll send them all to join Rikudo, and the monster is charged toward them. In the room, Kurugen's brother steps on him, saying, "Serves you right." The boy turns his face to look at him. Pressing harder on his head, Serato tells him not to look at him like that, because he's already dead. He reminds Kurugen of the lessons he taught him since they were kids, that his existence has no meaning and that he can't do anything. While beating him, he says no one wants him, no one loves him, that he's a loser, trash, a worthless man who should just lie down and die. As Rikudo is beaten down, he convinces himself the man is right. He feels worthless, meaningless. For a moment, he thinks maybe he should get up and fight back, but in the end, he doesn't. He's heard those words so many times before, and now he's just exhausted. All he wants is to go back to being someone without thoughts, without emotions. Lost in those dark thoughts, he suddenly hears his name being called again and again. A girl grabs his arm. It's Tachibana, telling him not to isolate himself again because everyone is waiting for him. She smiles as she looks at their friends, happy and carefree in their casual clothes. With tears welling in her eyes, she begs her friend to come back to them. In the room, the boy grabs his brother's foot before he can land another kick. For so long, he might have thought about staying down forever, but not anymore. Now, he has a place to return to. Furious, Serato punches him, but this time Rikudo fights back. He apologizes as he declares that no matter what Serato says, he is alive. Then, with one powerful punch, he smashes Serato's face, shattering it into pieces. Staring in disbelief, Serato mutters that it's impossible, questioning how Rikudo could do such a thing. Meanwhile, Kurogen vows to keep fighting for as long as he lives, watching the broken fragments of his brother's face fall before his eyes. Serato's reflection shatters completely, and even within the fragments, he screams Rikuto's name. Then Rikuto realizes that the nightmare has finally been smashed to pieces, and that now he can return to everyone. Suddenly, Rikuto regains consciousness, startling Kotan. Coughing hard, he sits up, and she rushes to him, emotional, saying he's okay. Rikuto, confused, asks what she's doing there. Wiping her tears, Kotan thanks God, saying she thought she had lost him. Rikuto replies that it's thanks to her, and deeply thanks her. Surprised, Kotan asks what he means. Then Rikuto explains that he was completely alone in a dark void, and that if she hadn't called out to him, he would never have come back. He says he would have given up on life, so he thanks her from the bottom of his heart. Kotan blushes, stammering that he's welcome, though she doesn't quite understand the situation. Deep down, she feels happy to see Rikuto smiling after so long. At that moment, Sakura comes running, shouting with joy that he's okay. Rikuto looks at her, and then Sakura hands him the pipe, saying there's no time to lose and he should use it. He takes the pipe and asks what it is. Sakura explains that it's the same pipe he trusts the most, but she modified it with a silver mirror. The pipe is now much sharper. She goes on to say that the monsters seem like they came straight out of a fantasy story, like in a game she played as a kid, where they could be easily defeated with silver weapons. She admits that this only works in the game and doesn't know if it will work in reality. Rikuto looks at the pipe for a moment and states with conviction that it will work. He thanks Sakura, calling her amazing, and sprints at full speed. Sakura feels emotional, and Kotan yells for him to be careful. Rikuto responds that he'll be back soon. Running, he reaches the other three, shouting their names, Nishi, Tuta, Yamaoka-senpai. The three turn around, happy to see him. Nishi jokes that he thought Rikuto was dead, complaining that he made them worry for nothing. Yamaoka-senpai and Tuta also laugh, calling his name. But there's someone who isn't happy, Saito, who screams Rikuto's name in rage. He charges straight at him, while Nishi tries to warn Rikuto to be careful. Without stopping, Rikuto replies that they'll talk later. But first, they need to end this. He asks them to help him. Nishi notices the sharpened pipe in his hands and, shocked, understands what Rikuto means. Preparing to fight, he says he'll help and tells him to leave the monsters to them. Then, the three of them band together to hold off the monsters coming from behind, while Rikuto charges forward to face Saito. The monsters start attacking, and the group pushes forward, cutting down every creature in their path. Meanwhile, as Rikuto sprints at full speed, a dog-like monster suddenly blocks his way. He thinks this is the end, but out of nowhere, several rocks fly from behind and hit the monster, injuring it badly. Surprised, Rikuto looks back and sees that it was Tuta who threw the rocks. Tuta laughs and shouts that he won't let anyone lay a finger on Rikuto-senpai, telling him to keep moving forward. Happy, Rikuto smiles, shouts a huge thank you to everyone, and keeps running until he's right in front of Saito. Furious, Saito screams Rikuto's name over and over, then launches a swift attack with his tail. Rikuto dodges, leaps high into the air, and from above points the modified pipe straight down. Apologizing, he drives the pipe into Saito's neck. Screaming in pain, Saito begs, saying he doesn't want to die. Still reaching his hand toward Koton, he calls her name until his entire body disintegrates into black dust. Crying, Koton apologizes, calling him Saito-kun. Soon, all the surrounding monsters also begin to crumble into dust. Seeing this, Nishi is shocked, realizing Saito was controlling them all, and once he vanished, so did the monsters. Yamaoka-senpai comments that it was just like what happened with the golem, and Tuta adds that now it all makes sense. With everything finally over, Rikuto collapses to the ground, exhausted, finally relaxing after so much fighting for survival. The whole group, overjoyed, runs to him, shouting how amazing it feels to be alive. Time passes, and the day comes when our heroes must leave. Someone asks if the water and food have been packed, and they say everything is ready to leave that place. A truck full of boxes appears, and Nishi, looking at the school, remarks that they're finally leaving, feeling a strange loneliness. Rikuto answers that yes, they went through so much there, things beyond their control. There were moments when they could have saved more people if they had acted differently, but they can't stay trapped in the past. He says this means they have to live well from now on. Koton listens in silence. Nishi laughs and agrees with him. Sakura, emotional, places her hand on her chest, calling Rikuto's name, and everyone in the group nods in agreement. Only Tuta seems deep in thought, saying nothing. The narrator mentions that no one knows what lies ahead. Tuta says he's ready to give it his all. Rikuto, excited, announces that it's time to head to Amashima, and the group drives off toward their next destination, believing that despite what may come, there is much hope there. The scene shifts to a place filled with jellyfish-like creatures lying on the ground. Among them stands a girl, stabbing a knife into a piece of paper pinned to a pole. The paper reads, "This area belongs to them. Don't look into their eyes. Use a mirror." The girl walks away, making it clear that things are going to get even tougher for the heroes. Meanwhile, we see a road and hear Rikuto narrating that days after leaving the school, they traveled toward Amashima, encountering many monsters along the way. Some attacked humans, while others posed no threat at all. Among them, there were even 2 unicorns. Inside the car, almost everyone is asleep, except Rikuto, who is studying the map, and Koton, who is driving. Nishi, awake in the back seat, asks where they are on the map. Rikuto thinks for a moment, then points to a spot, saying they must be around there. Nishi comments that they're not far from their destination, and that they have enough fuel to finish the trip. Rikuto asks why he looks so down, since he's not usually like that. Nishi hesitates before replying that he was thinking about something. When Rikuto asks what he was thinking about, Nishi recalls that before they left, he mentioned having a younger sister. Rikuto says he remembers. Koton, still driving, listens to their conversation. Nishi then explains that his family situation is complicated, which is why they live apart. A scene shows his parents living in different places. Nishi comments that it's good his sister lives close to Amashima. He only hopes nothing happened to her, that she managed to get out safely. But in a world like this, he feels that having hope might be pointless. He thinks he shouldn't keep his expectations too high. Hearing this, Koton gets a bit emotional and looks at him. Then, after thinking for a moment, Rikuto says she's fine, that he's absolutely sure nothing happened to her. Surprised, Nishi asks how he can be so sure. Rikuto replies that it's because she's his sister, so she's definitely as tough as he is and capable of handling any situation, just like Nishi does. These words leave Nishi shocked, maybe because he had never thought of it that way. Right after, Nishi starts talking, saying they only made it this far because of Rikuto's craziness. Hearing that, Rikuto answers that if that's the case, then everything's fine and there's no reason to worry so much. Nishi, staying quiet for a moment, says he can't believe it's Rikuto of all people saying this. He smiles and admits he understands, that he doesn't need to worry, and that he'll deal with these tensions once they reach Amashima. Kotun laughs at the conversation, and Rikuto replies that it's fine, whatever he thinks. Suddenly, Yamaoka-senpai, who was sitting in the back, notices something outside the window and panics, yelling for them to look out. A huge monster is stalking the car, following them closely. Nishi looks out and sees a gigantic dragon rushing toward them, roaring furiously. Inside the car, everyone screams in fear. Tuta and Sakura also glance outside and are left in shock. Nishi shouts at Kotan, asking if she can shake it off. She replies that she'll try and slams the accelerator, making the car shoot forward at high speed. Everyone is surprised. The dragon, enraged, spreads its wings and speeds up even more, doubling its pace. The group sees how absurdly fast it is. Sakura, trembling, says it's going to catch them quickly. Soon, the dragon gets close to the car, roaring so loudly that Tuta and Sakura cover their ears, screaming that they're done for. At that moment, Nishi spots an exit from the highway and yells at Kotan to turn there. They show a road leading down from the highway. Kotan replies that she got it and makes a sharp turn, taking the exit. This move barely dodges the dragon's claws, which roars angrily as the car escapes. Inside the car, everyone cheers, thinking they finally got away, but the dragon hasn't given up. It spreads its wings again and dives toward the car at even greater speed. Terrified, Nishi shouts that the dragon is back on their tail and tells Rikuto they need to find a way to lose it or they're in serious trouble. Rikuto agrees, and in desperation, Nishi asks where they're supposed to go since they're so far out, adding that he doesn't want to die. As the chase continues, the scene cuts to a bridge where a girl watches everything through binoculars. She sees the dragon and the hero's car in a full-blown chase. Then, she moves on, indicating she also has a role in this story. The dragon keeps roaring and closing in on the car. Nishi, now with his bow in hand, leans out of the car and aims at the dragon. He quickly loads an arrow, saying he has to do something. When he shoots, the arrow hits but bounces off without causing any damage. Seeing it didn't work, he throws himself back inside the car in panic, saying nothing is working, that the dragon didn't even get scratched. Rikuto concludes that their only option is to keep running. Ahead, a large pillar appears in their path. Rikuto yells at Kotan to turn quickly, or they'll crash. Keeping control, she swerves the wheel at the last second, and the car scrapes past, narrowly escaping. The car manages to pass the pillar, but the dragon, unable to make the turn, heads straight toward it. Inside the car, everyone leans to one side while Tuta and Sakura scream desperately. The dragon crashes headfirst into the pillar, roaring in pain. Meanwhile, inside the car, the group celebrates, thinking they got away. Nishi, smiling, says Kotan was amazing because the dragon was too big to make the turn. Tuta, all squished, complains that he's being crushed and asks everyone to give him some space. Sakura, excited, praises Kotan, saying she should be a professional racer. Kotan laughs at the compliments, but then Nishi notices something strange and becomes serious. Kotan also panics when she realizes what he saw. The car is starting to lose speed. Nishi asks what's happening, and Kotan says she doesn't know, that she's trying to start the car but the engine won't respond. Rikuto, alarmed, says this can't be happening after they've come so far. Behind them, the dragon has already recovered and charges toward the stalled car, roaring. Nishi, panicking, yells that it's coming. Rikuto orders everyone to get out of the car immediately. They all jump out just in time as the dragon's claws crush the vehicle, destroying it completely. In the middle of the escape, Sakura slips and falls. Right in front of her, the enormous dragon appears, roaring. Tuta, desperate, screams for her to get out of there, saying it's not safe. The dragon attacks with its tail, and Sakura, crying, begs not to die. The tail smashes the ground with force, but Rikuto, like the hero of the series, runs in and saves her at the very last second. Sakura, shocked, calls his name softly, her face turning red, but they're not safe yet, as the dragon keeps roaring behind them. At that moment, Yamaoka-senpai appears holding a huge rock, and when the dragon is about to attack, he shoves it into the monster's mouth. Rikuto and Sakura are stunned. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Nishi loads an arrow and thinks that at this distance, the attack will work. He fires and hits the dragon directly in the eye, making it howl in pain. Nishi yells for everyone to run as they make their escape. He looks at Rikuto and asks for an idea of what to do. Rikuto replies he doesn't know, but says they need to find a safe place. Suddenly, Rikuto stops abruptly, staring ahead. Nishi, surprised, asks why he stopped. Everyone is shocked. Ahead of them, 3 dragons appear, and even more begin to emerge around them. Nishi says this must be their territory. Rikuto confirms, and when Nishi looks back, he sees the wounded dragon has also recovered and is blocking the rear. Rikuto says they're completely surrounded now. All the dragons roar menacingly at the group. Rikuto steps in front of Kotan, holding the pipe, and tells her to run. Suddenly, a bright flare explodes in the sky. Someone fired a flare gun. The light is so intense that all the dragons stop and look at it. The glow shines brightly, and mysteriously, the dragons begin to fly quickly toward the flare, leaving the group behind. Surprised, Rikuto says the entire horde of dragons abandoned them. Nishi, confused, asks what's going on, why they followed that light. Right behind them, a female voice replies, "Looks like I got here just in time." The group, startled, turns around and sees the source of the voice. Standing like a true heroine is a white-haired girl, sitting on a motorcycle in an impressive pose. Sakura, still shocked, asks who she is. Nishi, also surprised, says she must be another survivor. Nishi comments that she must be a survivor. The white-haired girl, while holding her flare gun, replies that those creatures are called wyverns. Nervously, she mispronounces right and white, which catches the group's attention. Nishi asks Rikuto what they should do now, saying this is all very suspicious because he feels they can't fully trust that girl. Even so, everyone starts following her. Nishi, excited, says they're finally going to gain their freedom. Soon, the whole group enters a subway tunnel. Sakura, exhausted, runs while gasping for air, as Nishi and Tuta shout for her to hurry. "Quick, Sakura! Come on, get in here!" Behind her, the dragon lands and roars furiously. With tears in her eyes, Sakura runs as fast as she can, jumps into the tunnel, and escapes just in time as the dragon's head gets stuck at the entrance. The monster roars outside, unable to reach them. Sakura, almost crying, says she thought she was going to die. Nishi replies it was way too close, that if she had been 1 second slower, it would have been over. The whole group breathes a sigh of relief. At that moment, the white-haired girl says that was terrible. The group looks confused, trying to understand what she meant, until she says, "Thanks, idiots, you ruined my entire plan because of this." Nishi, outraged, asks if she just called them idiots. The girl confirms, saying who's crazy enough to drive a car in that place. Soon after, annoyed, she stops arguing and goes down the stairs with her motorcycle. Nishi shouts, asking where she's going, and she replies, "If you want to follow me, come. If you don't, whatever. I don't care." The group stays silent. Rikuto decides they should follow her, and they all keep moving. After a while, they reach a large open space inside the tunnel. Rikuto asks if it's safe to pass through, worried about running into other monsters. The girl says it's safe because they were the ones who cleared the area. Rikuto asks if they cleared the entire path, and she confirms, saying they're heading to Amashima, but they're not the only ones. Nishi, surprised, asks if there are more people. She answers yes, that there's a large group up ahead, which should be good news since everyone is gathered in one place. However, she says it in a sad tone, something Rikuto notices. Meanwhile, Sakura talks with Kotan, laughing and saying they're finally going to be saved. Kotan laughs too. Nishi, cheerful, thanks God, saying he was really scared, but now he feels everything will be fine. Then he looks at Rikuto and asks why he doesn't seem happy. Even the white-haired girl notices that the group is way too cheerful. After some time, the scene shows everyone walking along the train tracks, already far ahead. Sakura, out of breath, complains about being tired and asks if there's much left. The girl tells her to look ahead where there's a light, a sign they're almost there. A little further on, they finally see the survivors. Everyone gets emotional, realizing there are more people alive in the world besides them. Tuta, surprised, comments that there aren't many, and Sakura says she now understands that the entire underground is a shelter. The survivors, however, look depressed, with sad expressions, as if something had happened. Nishi finds their behavior strange, and the group watches in silence. Suddenly, someone shouts, "Kinku!" The white-haired girl looks toward the voice, and Nishi is shocked. 3 guys approach the group. The blonde one, who seems to be the leader, tells the girl she should know she can't just come back here like this. He grabs her head and presses it hard, saying that if she disobeys his orders again, she'll regret it. He asks if she forgot the rules of that place, stating that all the laws are made by him. He says she knows nothing, or else wants to become a rice cooker. With those words, the tension rises even more. When the blonde guy calls the white-haired girl a rice cooker, something changes in her. She becomes visibly uneasy. The guy clenches his fist, ready to punch her, charging forward and shouting, "Say something, come on!" Just as the punch is about to land, Rikuto appears, blocking the strike with his pipe. He says, "Stop now!" The aggressor, surprised, asks what he means. As he turns, he sees someone behind him and becomes terrified. A hand rests on his shoulder and he quickly shakes it off in fear. It's Yamaoka-senpai, whose towering presence alone is enough to scare him. The blonde guy shouts, saying things keep happening one after another, and asks who they are. Around them, the survivors murmur the same question. Who are these people? The blonde points at their eyes and says he sees hope in them, asking if they think they can rebel against the rules. He laughs, claiming they are rebels who believe the rules don't matter. Then he calls his friends, armed with bats and knives, to attack. At that moment, a man in a suit yells, questioning what's so funny about breaking the rules there. The blonde replies that they were the ones who started it first, that they broke the rules before. The man in the suit, Hijaki-san, smiles angrily, making the blonde back off in fear. He decides to let it go and changes the subject. Hijaki-san, Hijaki-san approaches the heroes with a smile and apologizes for the confusion, explaining that those guys had just returned from a hunt and were irritated. Nishi, confused, asks, "A hunt?" Then the group tells their entire story to Hijaki-san, who listens carefully. He comments that they were heading to Amashima and ended up arriving there, suggesting they should help each other. Surprised, Nishi asks what he means, and Hijaki-san explains that they should join the community because, together, they'll have a better chance. The white-haired girl watches everything silently. Extending his hand, Hijaki-san says that everyone there is the last hope to reach Amashima, and that working together is essential. The group stays silent, exchanging glances. The scene shifts to a station where everyone gathers in the office next to Hijaki-san. He welcomes them, saying that on behalf of everyone present, he's happy to receive them. He reveals that he is the leader of the place and is glad to meet them. Nishi asks about everything happening there, and Hijaki-san, now serious, says he'll explain from the beginning so they can understand. He starts telling the story of the day the Great Calamity began. Across the country, countless lives were lost. Monsters emerged from every existing smartphone, and since there are billions of them, billions of monsters appeared. The JDSF, the Japanese Defense Force, was not prepared for something so sudden. Modern society crumbled before their eyes. According to rumors, giant dragons once seen only in legends appeared at military bases worldwide. The group is shocked. Kotan says she now understands why the JDSF never managed to save them, even after so much waiting. Sakura comments that it was a real checkmate for humanity. While listening, Rikuto thinks intensely, suspecting that all this may have been planned. He connects the dots, remembering Saito, and concludes there may be people behind the calamity, real masterminds pulling the strings. Hijaki-san interrupts his thoughts, asking to finish his story. He continues, saying that despite many deaths, there were also survivors, like them, who were given a second chance. Working together, they managed to connect to the internet and discovered that Amashima was a safe place. That's why many survivors headed there. He explains that fortunately, there are still a few cities that resisted the calamity, and Amashima is one of them. For them, that place is the last hope. Hearing this, Tuta starts laughing and shouts that, just as they imagined, they'll finally reach there and save their lives. Sakura, smiling, also celebrates excitedly. At that moment, Rikuto asks, "From what you said, we can't enter the city of Amashima from the surface, right, Hijaki-san?" Hearing this, Sakura is surprised and falls silent. Hijaki-san confirms, saying that Rikuto is exactly right. He explains that they must have already seen those monsters called wyverns. The white-haired girl saved them, but that entire area is dragon territory. Because of that, the road leading to Amashima became home to those creatures, and no matter how much they try, they always lose, as the dragons take many lives and are never defeated. He continues, saying that trying to reach the city through underground routes is also extremely dangerous because there is a massive monster called the grotesque giant earthworm, a giant worm that has already killed many from their group. Nishi asks if that means everyone living in that shelter is also in danger. Hijaki-san explains that they found a way to stay safe. The worm fears light, which is why the shelter is illuminated all the time. Upon hearing this, Sakura panics, saying they are still in checkmate. Tuta comments that they're doomed. Hijaki-san, however, asks everyone to relax because they have a plan to get out of there. The group regains hope. Sakura asks if that's true, and Nishi begs him to confirm. Hijaki-san states that yes, it's true, explaining that's why everyone works together, dividing tasks and putting in their best effort. He asks if they will also cooperate. Nishi and Rikuto stay silent until Nishi asks for Rikuto's opinion. Rikuto replies that they have no choice. As long as they stay there, they'll have to help. The group agrees. Seeing this, Hijaki-san thanks them, saying he will now assign the tasks. At that moment, the white-haired girl at the door says the room falls silent. Hijaki-san, surprised, asks if she meant hunting. She confirms, saying the team has few members, so they should be sent to hunt. Rikuto and Nishi remain quiet, while Hijaki-san thinks for a moment and agrees, admitting he feels bad about giving them such a dangerous task, but someone has to do it. He announces that the boys' group will be placed on the hunting team. Tuta, a bit sad, asks if they really have to do something so risky. Hijaki-san comments that he won't let the girls do dangerous work. This irritates the white-haired girl. While he was saying the girls would handle rice, she yells that they'll be doing excavation, not rice. She snaps, saying cooking rice is a thing of the past. Hijaki-san, uncomfortable, says digging will be very hard for them, but admits she has a valid point. He then agrees that the two will do the excavation work. Sakura, a bit disappointed, comments that she wanted to fight but accepts the job. The white-haired girl calls the boys saying, "Let's go guys, it's time for our first job." Nishi, curious, asks her name. She replies, "My name is Fuyu's Ginkgo, I'm a hunter." Nishi asks what they'll have to do, and Ginkgo explains they'll go hunting. as the name suggests. She says that because of them, they didn't get what they were after before, so they'll have to make up for the loss. Koton, worried, asks them to be careful. Ginkgo asks if they're done talking and orders them to follow her. They all answer yes and start following her. Rikudo says, "Let's go everyone, it's time to work," and the group moves forward, ready for the mission. Now we see the neighboring city of Azahara, Amashima. It turned into a wyvern nest, forcing people to live underground. But the underground had its own nightmare to deal with. Down there, people spot a woman holding a child further ahead. One of the men in front tells everyone to keep it down, but a sudden tremor scares them all. A massive worm bursts from above, catching everyone off guard. Sadly, there were no survivors in that incident, since this place was the lair of that terrifying monster. Someone comments on how hopeless the situation is, with both the surface and underground being unlivable. Apparently, a guy named Hizaki came up with an idea, some kind of revival plan for them. Curious, one of the hunters asks what that is, and the man explains it's about the train. They just needed to use the power of the train to take down that beast. Luckily, there was a train at a nearby station, but it was buried under rocks. They'd need to dig it out, which makes the blonde guy remember Tachibana and Kuju suggesting the excavation earlier. Everyone walks in silence, and the atmosphere feels a bit awkward. The protagonist glances back, noticing someone lagging behind. Looking at the group, the guy in the red shirt says they're here to make sure the train gets unearthed. They'd handle the supplies needed for this mission by going to the surface. After all, they were the elite team supporting the community, so failure wasn't an option. Excited, the red shirt guy jokes that anyone left behind will be used as monster bait. Nervously, one of them asks if this job is that dangerous. The archer admits this whole thing is complicated, but the MC says there's no way around it. Being accepted by the community also comes with responsibilities. Everyone here was carrying that burden, so as newcomers, they had no right to complain. Even so, the situation still felt a bit off, and the archer notices it too. Wasn't it weird that everyone's morale was still pretty high, given the circumstances? The surface was probably a deadly place right now. All this excitement over such a dangerous job seemed suspicious. Not to mention, back in school, there was even a fight over who'd go for the supplies. The archer says maybe Hizaki is just a really charismatic guy. Still, the MC thinks there's something else strange about it. The monster living underground was a giant worm. Before they can continue the talk, the red shirt guy yells, asking what they're whispering about. Finally, they reach the exit to the surface. Time to start the hunt. The smallest of the group starts getting really nervous, but they had no choice. Leading the way, the red shirt guy walks ahead like it's no big deal. The protagonist group follows behind, silently climbing the stairs. At last, they see sunlight, and the red shirt guy starts talking. Holding a flare gun, he explains their job is pretty simple. They'll use it to lure the enemies away, giving them time to grab the supplies. They have to be careful though, since they don't have many flares. That means they need to know exactly where and how many wyverns are around. Confused, the MC asks what he means by that. The red shirt guy says the newbies should stay outside for a while. If they want to be part of the team, they have to prove themselves useful. Were they planning to quit or admit they're useless? The archer asks Rikudo what they should do, saying these guys seem crazy. Thinking it over, the MC suspects they're just being used as pawns. Rikudo is about to speak, but the gray-haired guy cuts in, saying he'll go. He asks if he's enough for the job, drawing everyone's attention. Nervous, the MC notices Ginkgo is acting strangely. The red shirt guy mocks him, saying he's acting friendly with the newbies, but Ginkgo insists that's not the case. This bait job is crucial. Any mistake could wipe them all out in an instant. He doesn't want to leave something this risky to the newbies, but then the MC steps up and says he'll go too. Ginkgo argues they'll just get in the way, which is why he volunteered first. Does he think he's some kind of knight? The MC says no. In his opinion, having two scouts is smarter. If one acts as bait, the other can cover. If they wanted to increase their chances of success, this was the best way to do it. This seems to annoy Ginkgo, who clicks his tongue and turns away, but he doesn't stop him. He doesn't care and tells the MC to do whatever he wants, then decides he's going too. Nishi starts to protest, but the MC tells him it's fine and asks him to stay back. The boy had no intention of being just another pawn. He was dead set on making it back alive. Climbing the stairs, Ginkgo takes the lead and tells MC to follow her. 15 minutes pass during their scouting, and the place seems pretty safe. MC notices Ginkgo kneeling in front of a plant. Curious, he asks what she's doing, but she only lets out a sigh. It's a mandrake, a plant-type monster, and he shouldn't touch it. Basically, it's like the mandrake from Harry Potter. Pull it out, it screams, and you die. On the ground, there's a marking with the same warning Ginkgo just gave MC. That makes Rikuto uneasy, remembering other similar messages. Standing up, Ginkgo asks why MC came along if he didn't know anything. If he's trying to act cool for some girl, that's disgusting. But MC says he's not doing this for that reason. He wants to earn the community's trust, so he needs to help, even knowing the risks. Meanwhile, Ginkgo thinks that as long as Yamaoka is around, no one will act recklessly. That logic seems solid, and MC asks her about it. She stays silent for a moment, then she laughs, saying it makes sense, but she still sounds doubtful. The next instant, her foot flies straight toward MC's head. Rikuto reacts in time, throwing himself back to dodge the hit. Furious, Ginkgo yells that this is ridiculous. Even nonsense has its limits. Pulling off gymnastics like Diane dos Santos, she flips 3 times toward him. Finally, she leaps at Rikuto, who's already holding a metal pipe as a weapon. MC manages to block her kick but feels the impact. Without giving him a break, she keeps kicking MC, but he blocks each strike. Ginkgo, who's actually a woman, is insanely fast, even for a human. Still, her combat stance isn't solid, and she could be beaten easily, but he refuses to use a metal pipe against her. Taking position, he waits for her to charge again. Lowering his guard, she grabs him by the clothes. The next second, she slams MC to the ground with brutal force. Pulling out a knife from who knows where, she presses it against MC's neck. She looks at him, saying he's way too weak. The boy stays silent. Then she jumps back, not attacking him any further. Ginkgo starts retreating, climbing up a nearby building. With multiple leaps, she scales floor after floor effortlessly. Finally, with one last jump, she reaches the rooftop, while MC stays on the ground, watching her. She calls him dead weight and orders him to go back or he'll just get in her way. Worried, he tells her to wait because it's dangerous, but she doesn't care. Hesitation could cost her life, but she says he talks too much for someone so weak. Leaving, she tells him to return to the station since that's the smartest choice. From a distance, MC decides not to follow her, just watching. We see Ginkgo on another building, surveying the area. There are 3 wyverns on a nearby rooftop, so this spot is still relatively safe. She sighs, lowering her binoculars. That was pretty easy. Ginkgo pulls out a map, checking her location and plotting her strategy. Now that the enemies have been located, it's time to head back. As she descends the building, she decides to search a bit more. Stopping halfway, she tells herself sending MC back was the right call. Finally, she keeps jumping down effortlessly. Reaching the ground, she starts figuring out her next move. With the map in hand, the only thing left is to secure the path. Something nearby catches her attention. Its shadow looks like a baby dragon. The next second, 3 wyverns stand right in front of Ginkgo. Shocked, she screams. There are 3 hatchlings right there, something she's never seen before. A bit further ahead, she realizes what happened. 3 eggs had just hatched. That can only mean one thing. One of the wyverns takes advantage of her distraction and lunges at her. All she can do is curse herself for letting her guard down. It's too late. Her mind flashes back to MC's warning about how dangerous it was to go alone. Her thoughts drift to the past, to a time when she never expected anything from anyone. Ginkgo manages to escape, but the wyverns are too close and she's injured. Gasping for air, she looks back to see if they're still chasing her. Everyone used to look at her like an alien because she was physically different. Her strength was greater than normal humans, and she grabs onto a nearby pipe. Throwing herself downward, she dodges a wyvern's strike. There was never anyone by her side. No one ever helped her. At school, everyone ignored her. She was always alone. People chatted with each other, but she stayed distant. Their conversations were shallow and boring, and they constantly gossiped about her. That kept her isolated because none of it felt real or important. Then a rumor spread that she was prostituting herself. She had to act to keep her name from being ruined. Being strong, she could beat everyone, even the boys. No one dared to badmouth her again. Even when she tried to get close to someone, they told her to stay away. To them, she was a freak. That loneliness consumed her. She started believing she really was an alien because nobody wanted her around. That's why she never expected anything from anyone. That's how she had always lived, and she thought it would never change. Still, her sick mother always said she had a good heart and would one day meet someone who truly understood her. She would eventually have friends. The wyverns are closing in, and she has no strength left to keep running. Ashamed and sad, she thinks that in the end, no one showed up to be her friend. A foot steps into view. We see MC standing there, pipe in hand, striking one of the wyverns. Stunned, she screams. MC looks back as she asks what he's doing there. Getting into position, he tells her she can rest, which leaves her confused. Reaching into his clothes, he feels relieved that he brought it with him. A flare is now in his hands. He lights it up, and that makes Ginkgo even more nervous. With the flare burning, he starts running, grabbing the monster's attention. The wyverns growl, finally locking onto MC. Screaming, Ginkgo calls MC an idiot, but he's no longer listening. He runs with the monsters now chasing after him. Turning a corner, he feels relieved that he managed to lure them away. Everything was going according to plan so far. He planned to lead them to a specific spot, but one of them had already caught up. Its sharp tail lashes toward his back, ready to strike. Rikuto uses the pipe to deflect the attack. Even so, he doesn't come out unscathed, his face now badly scratched. These monsters are insanely fast. If he's not careful, they'll catch him in no time. All he can do now is run, but he needs a plan. The monsters stop chasing, and he halts, staring ahead. Now he understands why they backed off. The cries of the hatchlings have attracted the adult wyverns. This just turned into a huge problem. Looking down, the monsters spot fresh meat for lunch. They all charge at once, and the boy takes his stance. All he has is a metal pipe. Perfect time to start using his hacks. Back where Ginkgo is, she's still gasping for air, lying on the ground like a pile of trash. Confused, she wonders what he planned to do after attracting the wyvern hatchlings. Hearing a terrifying sound, she panics, thinking something happened to MC. Was he a suicidal lunatic? What happened to him? A swarm of monsters casts a terrifying shadow over the city sky. This isn't a flock of birds, it's way worse. MC starts running. Dozens of wyverns are on his tail. Like this, he doesn't stand a chance. He needs to run a bit farther to find safety, but he's already out of breath. Rikuto is completely exhausted, reaching his limit. One wyvern gets too close, ready to snatch MC with its claws. There's no Deus Ex Machina here. MC is struck in the back and crashes to the ground. Still gasping, he tries to stand with whatever strength he has left. Unfortunately, he comes to a realization he didn't want to face. His death is imminent. The swarm is closing in on him. It looks like he's given up as he stops moving. Sadly, it seems like game over, and he accepts his end. The monsters appear, but the next instant, a shadow grabs their attention, pulling them away. Ginkgo manages to get up and slowly walks toward MC, then hears another strange sound. A powerful sound wave knocks her down again, forcing her to cover her ears. That shockwave is terrifying. She can't even stand. Scared, she thinks it can't be. Did MC really die? Desperate, the girl forces herself up and runs toward him. The place that was full of monsters now looks eerily calm. Looking down, she's horrified by what she sees. Rikuto is lying on the ground, surrounded by countless dead monsters. The wyverns are bleeding from every cavity. Looking at MC, she stays silent for a moment. The boy is unconscious. Did he really die? Beside him lies a mandrake. He had pulled it, which should have killed him. Shaken, she concludes he sacrificed himself for her. Rikuto slowly opens his eyes. Then, suddenly, he snaps them wide open. Getting up quickly, he startles the girl who thought he was gone for good. Trembling, she starts stuttering something, but the boy just looks at her, confused. Finally finding her words, she screams, asking how he's still alive. MC looks back, still not understanding what's going on. His ears are bleeding heavily. Pointing at him, she's even more confused. In that instant, she realizes what he did. As the monsters closed in, he made a bet. Right before pulling the mandrake, he ruptured his own eardrums to go deaf. Finally, at the very last second, he yanked the plant out. Because he couldn't hear, the deadly scream didn't kill him. Ginkgo stares at the boy, horrified, as she understands what he did to wipe out the monsters. How crazy was this guy to pull something like that? The girl is still trembling, and MC looks at her again. Screaming, she asks if he's insane, but he can't hear a word. Throwing him over her shoulders, she starts cursing the boy, calling him an idiot. Sure, his eardrums would heal, but he went way too far for a stranger like her. Rikuto stares at her, still clueless about what she's saying, and she remembers he's deaf. Sighing, she thinks maybe she could tell him how it all began, since he's deaf. For some reason, she knows why those monsters appeared in the world. There's a reason for all of this. Still feeling strange, she wonders if she should really share this with him. In her hand, she holds the directional pad from a PlayStation controller, and that makes her remember her mom. The doors to the truth were starting to open. They finally reach a safe spot, and are greeted by an incredulous shout after reporting the existence of the wyvern hatchlings. Talking to Ijima, a boy gets nervous, but he tells him to calm down. Thinking a bit more, he realizes they need to change their hunting strategy. Excited, he approaches MC, shouting that he did a great job. He likes the boy's crazy style and says he'll give him a good evaluation. Finally, MC's group reunites, relieved to see he's alive. Still, they think he's way too reckless, but he stays quiet. 2 weeks have passed since they joined that community. Destroying his own ears paid off. Now they were trusted by everyone else. After that, he never had to pull a stunt like that again during hunts. Even so, danger was always lurking. Every day they were close to death, so they had to stick together. The search for supplies was constant and dangerous. Ginkgo also seemed to recognize their strength and started fighting alongside them. MC thinks he gained another strong ally for his group. Tachibana and Kuju were doing their best with the excavation, and so they lived day by day, with everyone working together. In the end, all they had left was survival. Still, something was deeply bothering the protagonist, that weird feeling surrounding the whole community. He still couldn't figure out where that strange vibe came from. While walking, the archer, whose name he can't remember, starts chatting with MC. He's curious if his ears have fully healed. The boy says yes. They still hurt a bit, but they're much better. Tired, the boy asks how long they'll have to keep living underground. MC says he doesn't know. His attention shifts when he sees Ginkgo up ahead, talking to a group of people. The archer comments that she seems to be arguing with someone, and she really does. She's trying to make another girl drink something, but the girl is terrified. Slapping Ginkgo across the face, she says she can't stand this life anymore. Furious, the girl yells that Ginkgo doesn't know how much they suffer. Her life is better than theirs. The archer steps in, trying to calm things down. Ginkgo gets up and says he doesn't need to worry about it, and he says he understands. Looking at her, he thinks she's just as stubborn as MC. Rikudo walks up and says there's something strange going on, which makes the archer curious. Ijima and the others always seem way too cheerful, always in high spirits. In contrast, the people staying inside look depressed. The community's atmosphere feels off, like something's about to happen. Apparently, they're close to bonus time, which seems tied to performance. Interrupting their chat, Ginkgo says she wants to talk to MC. The archer thinks she's about to confess to MC, but she grabs him by the ear and says she's been watching him for the past 2 weeks. He seems trustworthy, so she asks him to follow her somewhere else. We see the excavation site. Ginkgo asks Kotone if her leg is getting better. She says yes, soon she'll be able to walk again, and Ginkgo feels relieved. Even so, she praises Kotone, saying Hizaki is an amazing person. Kotone thinks the excavation is too hard for girls. Because of that, her uncle said they'd be transferred to rice cooking duty. That makes them happy. No more digging. Kotone feels relieved too, but there's still a strange feeling in the air. The other people there stare at them with weird looks. The two leave as fast as they can, despite Kotone's leg. Sakura walks through the door, announcing her arrival with Kotone. She's happy to see the boys have returned as well. Cutting the small talk, MC wants to know what Ginkgo wants to say, and after sighing, she says she'd rather talk to him alone. But if he wants everyone there, fine. She's going to say it straight. Ginkgo asks if they want to know the truth about the Great Calamity, shocking the boys with her question. In other words, she's saying she knows the origin of everything. The archer is stunned and asks if she really knows. The girl says she doesn't know all the details, but she's sure about a few things. The great disaster definitely involves a man. Ginkgo then reveals that this man's name is Kurogane Sorato. Everyone is shocked by this because he shares the same last name as MC. Someone repeats Sorato's name. Ginkgo realizes he's actually related to MC. No one there knew MC had an older brother, and that he was the bastard behind everything. Kotone seems to remember Sorato, and that makes her really uneasy. Back to the main point, MC asks what Ginkgo means by him being involved in the calamity. She answers that she doesn't know everything, but she knows he's the heart of it, and she knows because something happened to her mother because of that man. A flashback shows a week before the calamity began. Ginkgo was lying on the couch, staring at her phone. She seemed to be watching a video of familiar people. It looked like the story of someone who had been killed by monsters multiple times, but not anymore, because he had learned their patterns. Slimes are weak against fire. Golems have a weak point, an E on their forehead. Wyverns gather where there's light, so it's best to avoid them as much as possible. The real problem was the boss, a lich, way stronger than the other monsters, but vulnerable to silver. If struck with something made of silver, he could be defeated. Now it's clear, it was actually a game, and she had learned how to beat the monsters in it, even managing to defeat the final boss. Ginkgo says that game was really fun, and it had been made by her mother. Realizing the time, she jumps up and runs out, needing to leave. She leaves her smartphone on the table, and we see the game's name. Now we're at the hospital where Fuyusi's mother is hospitalized. The girl walks through the halls, searching for her mother's room. Peeking through a half-open door, she looks inside curiously. In her mother's room, a man is complaining about having his proposal rejected by her. He tries to say he's a major investor, but she already knows and doesn't care. Listening from behind the wall, she hears his name, Sorato Kurogan. Ginkgo's mother had already retired, now disabled and with little time left, so she tells him to leave. Laughing, he says she was a famous programmer and one of the few people he respected in the world. She was the one who created the MSS, from theory to final development. He tries one last time, inviting her to work with him, promising a great reward. The woman stays silent, and that seems to make Sorato understand her decision. As he leaves, he says her documentation will be enough. Turning to her one last time, he says the world will change and he'll be the one responsible, so she'd better not regret her choice. Yukina looks at him, but doesn't bother responding to his provocation. As he walks away laughing, Ginkgo watches him from the hallway. Entering the room, she asks her mother who that man was. The woman prefers not to say, but she looks happy to see her daughter again. Even so, she asks if she went to school today. Ginkgo replies no, and her mother asks why not. The girl complains that her class is full of idiots and the lessons are boring. Yukina says she understands that she's different, but if she doesn't open up, she'll never make friends, which annoys the girl. Pulling at her own mouth, her mother tells her to smile, but she finds it embarrassing. Friends were annoying. She could live alone just fine. Yukina then asks why she always helps people. The girl doesn't answer, but her mother says she has a good heart, One day, she would meet someone who truly understood her, and she'd have real friends. Exasperated, the girl says she's tired of talking about that and wants to talk about the game her mother made. Nostalgic, she asks how much of the game she had completed, and Ginkgo says she finally defeated the Lich. Impressed, she says she made that area really hard, and Ginkgo agrees. Even so, she found the game very interesting, even if the enemies were common. The coolest part was using the modern era as the stage, making strategies with modern items more fun. Curious, Ginkgo asks her mother if the game's MC was based on her. Laughing, Yukina says maybe yes, maybe no. Ginkgo thought the game was amazing, but it wasn't finished. If her mother had completed it, it would have been a big hit. Her mother agrees, but Fuyuse thinks it didn't seem to have a clear ending. Curious, she asks what the game's ending would have been, but her mother says it's a secret. Ginkgo knew her mother didn't have much time left, so she tried to spend as much time as possible with her, until one day, without any warning, the end came for the world. She was terrified, not knowing how to react to it. Ginkgo couldn't believe what she was seeing. Monsters were all over the city, slaughtering people and spreading pure chaos. Right in front of her, several people were being killed one after another. The girl couldn't even process the reality unfolding before her eyes. Phones were scattered on the ground and she looked at them. The monsters had crawled out from the smartphones, killing everyone. But the worst part was something else. Ginkgo recognized every single monster there. They were all the same monsters from her mother's game. Terrified, she finally remembers her mother. Running away from the monsters, she heads straight to Yukina. She had to find her mother, but something stops her in her tracks. Looking back, she sees several girls stripped bare in front of a group of goblins. Afraid of being called a freak again, she hesitates to help. Finally deciding, she charges at the monsters to take them down. Her mother's words echo in her mind. She had a good heart. The goblins notice her approach. One of them, wielding a club, rushes toward the girl. She realizes the goblin's killing intent is nothing like in the game. This is real life. The monster attacks, but she dodges easily, knowing the attack patterns of every monster. If they're the same as the game, she knows exactly where their weak points are. With one strike, she takes down the first one, then charges at the second. They have great physical strength, but their stamina is just like a human's. As long as she doesn't get overwhelmed by their bloodlust, she can handle them. The last one starts running away in fear, but the girl is already on him. Grabbing it by the neck, she starts strangling the monster. Finally, with one move, she snaps its neck, killing it. Ginkgo tosses the body aside. She rushes to the girls who had been attacked. Sadly, she didn't make it in time to save them. Desperate, all she can do is apologize. Then the girl grabs a knife in her hands. Running again, she goes to find her mother. After that, everywhere she went was covered in a hellish scar of destruction. She kept running, not wasting a second, praying her mother was safe. Reaching the hospital, she cuts down everything standing in her way. The place is full of monsters, and she's already reaching her limit. Running in panic, she fears something happened to Yukina. Desperate, she bursts into her mother's room. Shocked, she realizes Yukina isn't there. The room is spotless. No bodies, no blood. Did she manage to escape? Finally, she hears noises coming from inside a closet. Opening the door, she sees her mother inside. She's typing frantically on a computer, yelling that she was too naive and needs to do something about this. Ginkgo is terrified, but her mother is even more desperate, seeing that he completed something that should never have been finished. If everything went as expected, all computers and smartphones were destroyed, but at least she still had one PC. Ginkgo screams for her mother again, finally getting her attention. Her daughter tries to pull her out of the closet so they can escape. Yukina refuses to move, which drives Ginkgo into despair. She says she can't leave yet, there's still something she needs to do. The woman starts blaming herself, but Ginkgo yells that there's no time for that, they have to run. Finally realizing what's most important, she decides to escape for now. She couldn't die, not yet. Just as Ginkgo pulls her mother out, the tail of a giant scorpion smashes through the room's walls. It terrifies both women. Frozen in place, Ginkgo asks what the hell that thing is. The giant monster stands before them, and they're both in shock. That was a mid-boss from MSS, and for it to appear here could only mean one thing. Yukina yells that her PC was crushed by the monster, but Ginkgo holds on to her. The two remain still, maybe hoping the monster would lose interest. She can only think about protecting her mother. This situation is a nightmare. Ginkgo is armed with only a small knife, and her mother is right behind her. Yukina tries to call her daughter's attention, but Ginkgo says to leave it to her. She starts recalling the monster from the game because she had been killed by it many times. God, she knows its weakness. The top of its head is where its armor is thinnest. One precise hit there would kill it instantly. Nervous, she knows she can't miss, or it's game over. She tries to think of her next move while her mother starts coughing. Apologizing, Yukina says she can't help her right now. There's no choice. Escaping with her mother in this state isn't an option. The monster hisses at the mother and daughter, and Ginkgo grips her knife tightly. Finally, it charges straight at them. Ginkgo stands still, waiting for the perfect moment. Finally, it was there, and she leapt straight at the giant scorpion. She believed her timing was perfect. Unfortunately, her plans were ruined by a rock that made her trip. That completely broke her movement, causing her to miss the boss's weak spot. She still managed to hit close to it, but it wasn't enough to bring the monster down. One of its claws lunges to grab Ginkgo. She notices, but there's no way to dodge. The girl is caught in its grip with insane force. It's a miracle she isn't torn in half. Trapped, she can't fight back against the scorpion anymore. It starts crushing her, the pain becoming unbearable. The monster raises its tail into position. This was the end of Ginkgo's journey. She's about to accept her death when something happens. At first, Ginkgo is confused by what she sees. Yukina looks back, smiling at her daughter. The monster had impaled her, and the girl begins to stammer in despair. The scorpion drives its stinger deeper into Ginkgo's mother. The girl screams in complete desperation. Finally, she stabs her knife into the monster's pedipalp with all her strength. She hits the joint of the claw, managing to free herself. The monster screams in pain. Its claw falls to the ground, broken. Meanwhile, the girl is already in the air, knife in hand, ready to end the monster once and for all. The hospital falls silent. Finally, the scorpion is completely defeated. The girl still can't accept that this is the end for her mother. She says her mother needs an antidote, but there wasn't one in the game, and she cries. In despair, she keeps asking what she should do, while Yukina just calls her name. Touching her daughter's face, she tells the girl to calm down. Yukina apologizes, saying everything is her fault. Because of her, many lives were lost. She coughs again. The girl doesn't understand, but her mother tells her to take something from her hand. In her hand is a small cross, an SD card. It holds the entire truth of the world, and also a ray of hope. Yukina says she needs to go to the FN Corporation in Amashima. The only one who could have done this was that man, Sorato. Ginkgo begs her mother to stop talking, but she calls her one last time. Her final words are, "I love you." She had always been proud of Ginkgo, who cries uncontrollably with her mother in her arms. She knew she'd have to say goodbye to her mother eventually and thought she was ready. But it happened so suddenly and in the cruelest way possible. And that's how it all began. Everyone there was shocked by the story they just heard. They realized they had to go to Amashima to understand what happened. Ginkgo says they're free to believe her or not. MC steps up and says he believes her and that they'll go to Amashima together. Ginkgo is stunned by MC's resolve. Sighing, she finally accepts. Shaking the boy's hand, she tells him he's a soft-hearted idiot. Back in an office, someone says it's that time of the month. Ijima is there, and Hizaki says he's been doing a good job, closing a binder in his hands. Finally, it's time for everyone to be rewarded for the last month's hard work. With a strange expression, the uncle says it's bonus time. We jump to a day after Ginkgo's story. Everyone there is aware it's the day of the bonus. The hunters are overly excited as the day approaches. While others carry things with sad faces, the hunters call them pathetic for their expressions. They start bad-mouthing those who won't get a bonus and will even be demoted. MC overhears this from afar, noticing how some look happy while others look uneasy. It's that same strange atmosphere from before. To Rakuto, it's almost frightening how well order is maintained there. It might seem like a perfect place, but it's not for everyone. He still can't figure out this weird feeling and thinks about asking Ginkgo. A scream grabs the attention of Rakuto and the archer. Some hunters are grabbing a girl who's trying to fight back. Watching from a distance, MC thinks this isn't uncommon there. Annoyed, the archer says they should help her, and the boy agrees. They approach and tell them to stop harassing the girl. One of them, wearing a mask, steps up trying to threaten MC. For some reason, MC's stare gives the masked guy a bad feeling. Another hunter with glasses, not noticing the protagonist's glare, comes closer to intimidate him. The shoppy version of Yamcha tells them to leave so they don't disturb the order of the place. He then approaches the girl, apologizing for the other's behavior. Sana is clearly uncomfortable with this, but stays silent. Yoneda calls the other guys to go eat somewhere else while they try to protest. He tells them to leave, saying soon they'll all fall under Hizaki's order. The archer asks what they're talking about, but MC ignores it and asks Sana if she's okay. The girl flinches as the protagonist approaches. Suddenly, someone rushes at MC, shoving him and yelling for him to stay away from his daughter. Seeing his friend on the ground, the archer gets worried, but the girl says they helped her. Her father looks resolute, saying they're just like the others, and they'll see soon enough. Getting up, MC asks if he's her father and if he saw the whole thing. As her dad, shouldn't he have been the first to step in and protect his daughter? The man gets nervous at the provocation and tells them to shut up. He charges at the boy, but his daughter stops him. Crying, she yells that they're alive because of the hunters and that she's fine. The two hug and cry with the father apologizing to her. Embarrassed, the archer drags MC away, telling him they should leave. The scene shifts to someone sitting by a bonfire. The man trembles, holding his head, muttering that he hates this. He looks like a total nerd, panicking because he might be the next one demoted. Kotone walks up to him with food, asking if he's okay. When he sees her face, he lights up, happy to see someone so pretty. Shaking and nervous, he says he's fine, which makes her relieved. She says she'll leave the food there for him. As she walks away, he mumbles something, catching her attention. Curious, he asks if she's a cook, and she replies, yes. Nervously, he says even a girl like her has to work. She answers that she can't help in any other way, so she'll do her best. Sakura appears, saying the boys have returned, and Kotone says she'll go see them. The nerd watches her walk away, completely smitten. Drooling with a psycho face, he starts plotting something since it's his last day there. Back at the tent, someone says there's definitely something strange. They've been there for half a month, and he still can't shake off that feeling. The archer agrees, saying he's starting to wonder if it's even safe to stay there. The shoppy version of Armin says it probably has to do with the so-called bonus. Rikuto looks at Ginkgo and asks her what's going on. The girl hesitates, but before she can answer, Sakura and Kotone show up with food. Everyone gets excited about eating, and that reaction clearly scares Ginkgo. Nervously, she asks why they're serving food, and the two girls look confused. Kotone explains they were moved to kitchen duty today because of her injured leg. Sakura apologizes for doing something so easy while everyone else works hard, but the archer says it doesn't matter. Armin adds that in the end, digging holes isn't for girls anyway. Ginkgo boils with anger, cursing Hizaki in her head. She storms out, leaving everyone confused. The archer nervously yells Fuyusa's name, but she ignores him. She's furious, thinking about what Hizaki is planning. Running through the corridors, she worries about the girls being moved to the kitchen and vows to make him undo it. She stops running when something catches her attention. Hysterical laughter. Ijima is drinking and says Hizaki is filthy. When asked what he means, he spills the truth. The train they've been digging out has been ready for ages, but Hizaki kept it secret. He tells him to keep it down. Ijima, drunk and hyped, says no one will come there at this hour. Hizaki admits the train is still half buried, but all that's left is to remove the rear cars. On top of that, they didn't have the key to start it, so they needed to modify the train's electrical system. But those were just excuses, since he had the key all along. Hizaki didn't want anyone leaving. It was better to build a system right there. As he gives his communist-style speech, the door suddenly swings open. Ijima flinches at Ginkgo entering, but Hizaki doesn't react. She's furious after hearing the whole truth. With a trembling voice, the girl asks why he's doing this. Hizaki stays silent, which only makes her angrier. She yells for him to answer. Ijima steps up to confront Ginkgo, but the redhead stops him. He starts telling a story about a faraway land, pulling out a small box. The story is about Pandora's box. One day, some idiot opened the box and unleashed all the evil in the world, throwing humanity into despair. But in the end, at the bottom of the box, there was hope. Thanks to that, humanity was able to move forward and live happily ever after. Ginkgo gets even more confused and asks what the hell he's talking about. Hizaki says the truth is, what was inside Pandora's box wasn't real hope. What was there was the despair of knowing. Did she understand that? People only have hope because they don't know the future. That ignorance both takes away and sustains their hope at the same time. That still doesn't make sense to Ginkgo, who yells at him to explain what he means, while Hizaki says Amashima is Pandora's box. Here, they had happiness, and everyone dug for the hope of a better tomorrow. Ijima laughs at the situation, saying he's happy with how things are. The monsters are annoying, but he's gotten used to them. Here, he can eat and drink as much as he wants. On top of that, they have the best kind of entertainment, which is rare in a world like this. Hizaki shuts him down and says they can put that aside for now. The redhead asks her what she thinks of this. She can leave things as they are or hurt herself by messing with that box. She's always been on their side, so wouldn't it be better to keep things the way they are? Hizaki even tries to convince the girl by saying MC's group would get special treatment. She starts remembering the girls who were moved to the kitchen. Hizaki then asks what it's going to be, and she hesitates. The next moment, a scream is heard. Monsters had appeared. The giant worm had reached where the humans were. It was spreading terror throughout the place. It wasn't just one worm anymore, it was a whole horde, and everyone ran in panic. No one would survive if things kept going like that. Someone starts running toward the monsters. It was the protagonist, wielding his special pipe and smashing one of them. The archer is there too, giving him cover. He's confused and yells, asking why this happened so suddenly. Rikudo says they were distracted by the wyvern hatchlings and didn't realize there could also be giant worm hatchlings. Sakura comes running, crying, trying to escape from the worms. Kotone calls out to the girl, who runs toward her friend to a safer spot. The ground starts shaking. Ginkgo screams in fear, asking what that noise is, and Hizaki says it's no time to be fighting. The girl runs out the door, leaving the two men behind. Ijima also starts leaving, and the redhead tells him to be careful. Before he goes, Hizaki gives him a message about Ginkgo. He says he'll let this slide because she's strong, but she might become a problem soon. Smiling like a psycho, he says he'll leave the methods to Ijima, but he needs to take her out for the sake of order. Laughing, Ijima says Hizaki is hardcore, and the redhead smirks. In Ijima's opinion, it's a waste to get rid of her, because he wanted to make her cry like the other girls. Unfortunately for him, orders are orders, and he'll do as he's told. People are still running, desperate and terrified of the worms. One of them is about to grab another girl for its next meal. Someone jumps in. Ginkgo is there, using her arm to block the worm's attack. Taking advantage of the opening, she drives her knife into the monster's head. It drops to the ground instantly, dead. She turns to the girl and orders her to head to the station entrance, where there won't be monsters. Backing away, she tells the girl to go, but the girl notices Ginkgo's injury. Yelling, she tells her to get out now. It's no time to think about others. Thanking her, the girl runs off as fast as she can. Ginkgo stays behind, remembering that in MSS, the worm hatchlings weren't stopped by light. As the monsters charge forward, she's furious for forgetting that. Meanwhile, MC's group fights bravely against the monsters in another area. They keep taking down monsters, but more keep coming. The archer complains they can't have a single moment of peace. Ijima shows up, instantly killing one of them with a strike. He and Hizaki join MC's group, and the redhead asks about the situation. The blonde says the monsters are weak, but there are too many of them. This is a big problem, and Ijima says there are 2 blocks here, north and south. Apparently many monsters appeared in the residential area, causing panic. He wants to know what they should do, and Hizaki starts thinking. The redhead then says to leave the south side for later, shocking MC. Nervous, the archer protests, but Hizaki says it's the most rational choice. In the north are those who contribute the most to society, like the cooks and hunters, while in the south, only the useless and sick live there. They're not valuable. In emergencies like this, priorities become clear. He won't make excuses. This is for the sake of order, and he asks them to understand. MC starts running toward the south. The archer yells, asking if he's going to save the people in the south. He decides to follow. Before he can, they're attacked again by more worms. While fighting, his friend yells that he'll follow MC as soon as he can, so he'd better stay alive. The scene shifts to Ginkgo emerging from what looks like a tunnel. She sees MC running toward the south and is shocked. Annoyed, she thinks he's a complete idiot but decides to follow him. Hizaki watches from afar, finding the two of them very irritating. Even so, he sees this as a good opportunity and alerts Ijima. Those without any work live there in the south. That was the residential area, and a massacre was happening there. Many people had already been wiped out by the worms that appeared. Sana and her father were together, trying to escape, but they were surrounded. The two fall to the ground. The girl screams in pain. Her father says he can't go any further, but she panics, not wanting to leave him behind. And yeah, she really looks like Hanekawa from Monogatari. He begs her to go and survive, but she refuses. A worm leaps at them, and Sana screams in despair. Someone jumps in front of them. With a single strike, MC smashes the monster's head, saving both father and daughter. The hit was so strong it even tore off one of its, let's just say, its eggs. Sana and her father recognize MC, and he tells them to run because he'll handle things here. Confused, the father asks why he's helping them. Neither of them had any role here, so being abandoned was natural. So why was he there? Rikudo says that logic is for animals. They're here because they're human. Everyone is alive, so naturally they should help each other. The father is deeply moved by MC's words, while Hanekawa too blushes, and you know what that means. She's falling for him. A tremor snaps the three back to reality. Nervous, the man asks what that terrifying noise is, and Sana clings to her father, scared. Someone calls MC's name, and he looks back to see who it is. Ginkgo runs toward him, shouting that it's too dangerous and they need to get out. He feels the ground crack beneath him. The ground collapses, and the boy starts falling into the hole, Ginkgo desperately trying to reach MC. She stretches out her arm as he falls, and the boy manages to grab her. The rocks keep falling, but Fuyuse doesn't let go of MC. She's seriously strong. Looking at her, the protagonist thanks her for saving him. Curious, he glances down, wondering what kind of giant hole this is. Ginkgo theorizes that the worms ate through the entire foundation of this place. Even understanding her point, the boy thinks this raises more questions than answers. The girl looks at the father and daughter, asking for help to pull MC up. They snap out of their shock and quickly agree to help. Someone shows up, saying they'll help too, and Sana looks back. It's Ijima, and he kicks Ginkgo into the hole. Both she and MC fall. At that moment, Ijima lets out an evil laugh. The two finally hit the bottom, while Ijima pretends it was an accident. Still making excuses, he says he couldn't reach them in time to save them. What a shame. Looking at the remaining two threateningly, he asks if they agree with his version of the story, intimidating them further. Sana and her father are terrified. They don't have the strength or courage to confront him, so they say yes, and he walks away. Sana looks back, still thinking about what just happened, but says nothing. The scene changes to the tunnel connecting the north and south sides. The archer, whose name I always forget, is there, shouting in panic, asking what that terrible sound is. Shoppy's version of Armin finally calls him Nishi, saying it's dangerous here. At that moment, he doesn't know what to do and wonders if MC is okay. The ceiling begins to crack, and the guy freaks out seeing it. Shouting to the other two, he warns them about the danger. Unfortunately, it seems too late, and the ceiling starts collapsing on them. Luckily, those rocks must have trained with stormtroopers because not a single one hits the boys. Finally, the tremor stops, and we see some tents still standing. Several worms lie dead on the ground. Now we see Koton and Sakura talking, worried about MC and the others. Sakura says they were caught in different collapses, and it was Hizaki who told her that. Kotoni falls to the ground, shocked by the news, but Sakura tries to calm her. She says they're strong and will come back alive sooner or later. Someone enters the tent, and the girls think it's their friends, but it's not. It's the nerd who was served by Koton, and he brought two more guys. Sakura freaks out, asking who he is, and Kotoni recognizes him. Thirsty for the girls, the three nerds advance to attack, terrifying them. We don't see what happens next, just the screams inside the tent as the two cry for help. They were tied up, and the leader nerd, drooling, says they can now do whatever they want with them. The girls try to scream, but they're gagged, and the guy grabs Kotone by the hair. He's ecstatic to see her in that state, and already has a plan to cover up what he's about to do. Excited, he shouts that he'll have a great time before the end. Placing his hand on the girl's clothes, he rips them off, leaving her almost completely naked. The fat guy throws Sakura to the ground, even more hyped to attack her. Sakura's clothes are also torn, and he's thrilled by what he sees. In despair, the two start praying for someone to show up and save them. Crying, she remembers Rakuto, but maybe they won't be saved. On top of the girl, the nerd screams at her to behave because she's just a mere cook. He was finally about to do what he wanted most, driving the girl into despair. While still on top of Kotone, the nerd rambles random nonsense saying there's no guarantee he'll see tomorrow. Besides, they're just cooks, so according to him, they're not doing anything wrong. Laughing like a madman, he keeps repeating that and starts getting closer to her. He opens his mouth to lick the girl, who struggles desperately to get away from him. At that moment, a sound outside the tent catches the nerd's attention. He turns to see what happened. Standing there is none other than Hizaki, who had already taken out his two friends. The nerd starts stammering in despair, seeing his friends dead. Shaking, he looks at Hizaki pointing a gun at him and screams, asking why. Everyone should have been caught in the chaos caused by the worms, but Hizaki replies that he knows exactly how people behave when order is disturbed, thanks to his profession. Still, this was a problem. Disrupting the order he worked so hard to maintain couldn't be forgiven. The nerd tries to justify himself, saying he gave in to temptation. Throwing himself on the ground, he begs for his life. Hizaki walks closer, presses the gun to the nerd's head, and tells him to keep talking. The nerd keeps saying it was fine because the girls were just cooks. With his finger ready on the trigger, Hizaki says this is unacceptable. For them to keep living as humans, order must be absolute, and he broke it. In other words, he's just a beast. The nerd screams, begging to be spared, but it's too late. A small hole opens in his forehead. Holstering his weapon, Hizaki says beasts are not allowed in his community. The two girls are in complete shock, trembling as they watch everything. Hizaki apologizes sincerely for what happened, but says this situation is alarming and could harm the community. That's when Ijima enters the tent. Several other hunters come in as well, and Hizaki says they need an immediate solution. Conveniently, he mentions rewarding everyone who worked well last month, and we see Ijima already with the same creepy expression as the nerd. Hizaki smiles and asks if the girls will cooperate with him. They realize they've gone from bad get to worse. Seeing that group of men, they pray again for MC to show up. We cut back to the hole where Ginkgo and Rikuto fell. Of course, the two are alive, complaining about the fall. Still, they're happy to have survived and start walking. There are countless worm eggs around, making the girl sick. Ginkgo asks if he knows where they are, and MC says he's already memorized the whole place. What he really wants is to get answers from Ijima about why he kicked them down here. Ginkgo knows exactly why. She then says she needs to tell MC something about the community but hesitates. He asks her to just say it, and she tells him everything he needs to know. Back at the tents, 3 people are kneeling on the ground. Some men are there looking badly beaten. Someone yells MC's name. Ginkgo tries to hold MC back, but he looks determined and not calm at all. Sana's father is crying on the ground, begging for forgiveness. Rikuto walks past him without saying a word, but the man notices him. He's shocked to see that MC managed to escape that pit. The boy reaches a closed door with a sign saying no one should enter. Kicking it open with full force, he's met with a horrific scene. Several girls are being abused in the most disgusting ways. Sana is crying while a hunter says she's the best of them all. Another drags a girl by her hair, wanting to hear her scream. Sakura and Kotone are tied up and crying, but they haven't been touched yet, and they look relieved to see MC there. Hizaki walks up to MC, opening his arms, saying he's happy to see him. He explains that everyone who performed well last month is getting their bonus, and that includes him. Calmly, MC asks if this is what he calls order, and Hizaki says yes. Pulling out his trusty pipe, MC tells the redhead he can shove his order up his ass. All Hizaki does is let out a mocking laugh. He says it's sad that MC doesn't share his view of order. Drawing a gun from his clothes, he points it at Rikuto and thanks him for his service. Then, blood splatters, but we still don't know whose it is. Outside, some people watch the door where everything is happening. Hizaki says a person stays human because of order. Humans, at their core, are driven by their desires. No matter how much we evolve, it's necessary to suppress the animal nature in our hearts to keep civilization. The problem is that in a world like this, suppressing your desires isn't always good. Still, some kind of order is needed. A system that protects and keeps people as people, and the boy had to agree with that. Rikuto had been captured, and Ijima says he was an idiot for going against Hizaki. Even so, capturing him was a huge problem. It took 3 people, and they only managed because they had the girls as hostages. Sakura and Kotone's lives were in danger at that moment. The redhead tells MC that in this world, he managed to build a society where happiness exists. That was supposed to be a society that protected the weak, a real community. Even so, Hizaki wanted MC to reconsider and join their side since he was so talented. Rikuto looks at him and says, "It's all a sham," catching the redhead's attention. He asks what he means by that, and MC says everything he built is fake. It's all an act, and his society is built on fear, not happiness. That makes him nothing more than a beast, not a person. MC's words make the guy furious. Ijima kicks MC in the face, yelling at him not to talk like that to Hizaki. The 3 men start beating the boy on the ground. The girls scream in despair, and I'm wondering where Ginkgo is. As if the author read my mind, she appears watching the scene without reacting. Hizaki notices her and Sana's father, and realizes he'll have to deal with them too. The redhead says MC will be used as a sacrifice this time. He says it's a shame, but that's what he'll do for the sake of his order. Hizaki orders the hunters to stop enjoying their bonus and take the protagonist to the designated spot. It was time for everyone to witness the work MC would do for them. They finally reach the edge of a pit, with MC standing at the brink like he's on a pirate ship's plank. Looking down, he gets a horrible feeling. There's a giant worm at the bottom, and it seems to be waiting for him. The nearby people are terrified, but they've seen this before. Hizaki explains this worm has an interesting trait. It stays still for a while after eating. A small beam of light is enough to keep it motionless. Shocked, MC says he's worse than a beast. He's something that shouldn't even exist. Hizaki laments that MC can't understand his vision, even standing at death's door. The girls are held by the hunters, forced to watch MC's sacrifice. Ginkgo shows up and yells at MC to give up and follow Hizaki's orders. Screaming, she says she'll become a cook too in exchange for saving Rikuto. The boy says that's not necessary, shocking her. She asks if he isn't afraid of dying, and he says he is. Even so, living at the cost of her sacrifice is worse than death itself. Everyone watching is stunned by his words. Life sucks, but he still wants to live, as a person. Finally, he says he doesn't plan on dying. He's going to kill that monster. Ginkgo is even more shocked. He's completely lost it, and he admits maybe he has. Even if that's the case, he'll fight to the end. because that's what living really means. Everyone is moved as the boy smiles at death. One hunter, pissed at his speech, steps up to push him. Grabbing a baseball bat, he tries to hit MC, who sees the strike coming. Something happens. The hunter freezes mid-swing. Ginkgo had kicked him from behind. In the next moment, the hunter falls into the pit to his death. The worm doesn't waste a second and devours him instantly. Rikuto looks back, and she says he was right. She had forgotten this because she was poisoned by Hizaki's influence. Memories of her mother flood back to her. The girl screams that she'll fight alongside him, leaving him confused. He quickly says she also seems reckless sometimes, and she replies she doesn't want to hear that from him of all people. The two are surrounded by the hunters still there, preparing to attack. Hizaki seems satisfied with this, thinking he can kill them both here to maintain his order. Swinging his pipe into a hunter's head, MC makes the first move. Ginkgo wastes no time either, slashing another hunter near her with her knife. Everyone is furious and scared of their strength, but they don't break the siege. Ijima laughs at the situation, telling them not to be afraid. They may seem strong, but they're only two, so they can still be taken down. MC gets hit from behind by one of them. Ginkgo panics and shouts his name as he starts falling to the ground. Another hunter takes the opening and attacks Fuyuse. She still manages to knee him in the chin and stays on her feet. Ijima orders them to keep pressing, saying they'll fall soon. Everyone charges at MC and Ginkgo at once. Reloading his weapon, Hizaki laughs, saying this is true order. Sakura and Kotone, still naked and tied up, cry in fear and despair. Sana and her father watch the entire scene from a distance, unable to do anything. Everyone starts begging the hunters to stop. The two are fighting insanely hard to save everyone, and the onlookers start feeling guilty for just standing there. They saw Rikuto's attitude in the face of death. He'll fight to the very end. Everyone begins to wonder if they can even say they're alive. Blood splashes, but we don't know whose it is, and someone yells to let go. We hear someone cursing, and finally see that Ginkgo has been captured. Hizaki walks up to MC saying, "This is the end." The boy is on his knees, breathing heavily. While catching his breath, MC hears Hizaki saying he caused too much trouble for everyone there. The two girls realize this might be the end for all of them. Ijima yells at the blonde to finish MC off and throw him into the pit. He walks up to Ginkgo, pressing Negan's bat against her neck, telling her not to worry about MC because this isn't the time. Getting closer, he says he's a nice guy and could give her a special role. One word, bathroom. Yeah, no one gets what he meant by that. Smirking, he says he's waited long enough and will make sure to give her all the attention she deserves. Suddenly, a piece of wood smashes into Ijima's head. Bleeding, he turns around and asks what the hell that was. Ijima collapses, and the hunter holding Ginkgo yells his name. Rikuto looks in disbelief at the person standing there. The one who hit Ijima was none other than Sana's father, breathing heavily too. Finally, the other people start taking action, charging at the hunters. Everyone is shocked at the sudden courage of those once called cowards and pathetic. The massacre quickly turns against the oppressive hunters. Sana asks why her father is doing this. He apologizes for taking so long, but says he won't use the excuse of being powerless anymore. He'll protect his daughter with his life if necessary, then charges into battle. Never again will he make the mistake of leaving her unprotected. A woman smashes a brick into the fat guy's head, knocking him out instantly. Ginkgo, exhausted, tries to talk to the people who apologize to her. They admit they were too scared to do anything because of Ijima and the others. All their frustrations had been projected onto Ginkgo, so they ask for her forgiveness. With Sana's father leading the charge, he rallies everyone. It's time to reclaim their dignity and live like real people. The group advances with whatever weapons they can find, charging at Hizaki and the hunters. Desperate, the hunters have nowhere to run and are taken down one by one. Several try to escape but fall into the worm pit, getting devoured instantly. Hizaki watches this and realizes he'll have to rebuild his order. The hostages he had are useless now that the situation has reached this point. Still, his main target is MC, and he thinks about what to do. People started fighting because of MC. If he kills him, the rebellion will end immediately. Raising his gun, he decides to settle this once and for all. Saying goodbye to MC, he pulls the trigger. Ginkgo realizes what Hizaki is about to do and screams for MC, warning he's about to be shot. The boy tries to move, but it seems too late. Hizaki says, "Goodbye, Rikuto." Ginkgo runs toward them, but she won't make it in time. A gunshot echoes, and blood splatters. Shocked, Ginkgo freezes at what she sees. The bullet only grazed MC's ribs. It wasn't fatal. In Hizaki's hand, something pierced him, making him miss the shot. Someone arrives, saying they barely made it alive and asking what's going on. It doesn't matter. In the end, he decided to side with Rikuto. It's Nishi. The two girls are overjoyed to see Nishi show up. The other giant is there too, already taking down the two who were holding the girls. Throwing rocks at the hunters, Shoppy's Armin also appears to help. Relieved, the girls start thanking them for finally arriving. They were late because they got caught by the tremor. Their intended route was blocked, so they had to go to the surface to reach everyone. Nishi asks MC what they should do now, and he says they need to take down Hizaki and his group. Immediately, Nishi opens fire, scattering the hunters. The giant doesn't waste time either, knocking out several of them. Looking to the side, MC notices a stone lying there. Everyone keeps pushing forward while the hunters still try to escape. The masked man says there's no stopping them and asks Hizaki for orders. He realizes he has to run and abandons the masked man, planning to use the train to escape. But it won't be that easy. MC is already standing right in front of him. Stopping, Hizaki tries to talk to the boy. Ginkgo shouts that Hizaki has the train key and must not escape. Nishi is tense because Hizaki has a gun, and he can't cover Rikudo right now. The chaos is too much, and he can't aim properly. The girls watch the scene in despair, along with Armin. The giant also sees this as a problem, but keeps neutralizing enemies around him. Hizaki pulls out his gun and asks if MC really thinks he can win. The redhead warns that the wound on his hand won't affect his aim. Can MC really take him down from this distance? Getting into his stance, Rikudo says he'll win. Silence falls between them. The boy charges, pipe in hand, rushing toward Hizaki. Hizaki fires without hesitation. Rikudo dodges the bullet, which almost curves past him. Cold and calculated, almost like a peaky blinder, Hizaki fires a second shot. MC thinks a gun isn't as scary as it seems. He can read the bullet's path by watching the barrel and timing the shot through the trigger finger. Plus, bullets travel straight, giving fencing techniques an edge. That's what Hizaki thinks MC is thinking, but he's naive. The 3 shots he fired were to analyze MC's dodging patterns. The next shot will be fatal. He's locked onto MC's movements. In the next instant, Hizaki's aim fixes on the protagonist's forehead, which startles him for a moment. A shot rings out, seemingly hitting Rikuto right in the chest. Hizaki says it's checkmate. Everyone screams MC's name, believing he's been shot. A rock falls to the ground. In the next second, MC charges full force at the redhead, catching him off guard. Confused, Hizaki tries to understand what happened. It was impossible. There was a piece of broken concrete hidden in his clothes. Rikudo says he figured out Hizaki likes aiming for people's hearts. Weird thing to say mid-fight, but okay. Knowing that, he prepared himself in case the redhead hit him. MC's strike lands square in Hizaki's chest, sending him flying from the impact. The train key falls out of the redhead's clothes. He's thrown far away, out of everyone's reach. The impact against the wall is massive. Striking a pose, Rikuto tells Hizaki it's all over for him. We see a dark pit and hear someone ask if anyone knows the difference between a person and a beast. Hizaki remembers his father saying the difference is order. When order is lost, a violent world is born, and people become beasts. That's why the law protects order, so everyone can live and help each other. His father was killed in an illegal deal between a cop and a yakuza. That twisted Hizaki's view of order, making him believe anyone who disrupts it is evil. The mere presence of evil brings misfortune to everyone around. A teacher tries to stop a bully from picking on another kid. The kid threatens the teacher, saying he'll tell his father what's happening. Intimidated, the teacher still tries to help, but is beaten by the student for no reason. The other classmates find it disgusting, but don't dare stand up. In a dark alley, someone screams. The same bully is being beaten by someone wearing a helmet. He tries to use his father as a shield, saying he's a politician. It doesn't work. He keeps getting hit. The next day, it's reported the kid didn't show up at school and is missing. The students find it strange because he was there the day before. Still, some seem relieved by what happened. This makes Hizaki think order, when maintained, makes everyone happy. But this world is full of bad people. All those drowning in their desires, committing sins. They all live in the underworld, supported by those around them. Someone has to bring down the hammer to crush their heads. Someone has to maintain and protect order. That's why he thought he was the right person for the job. At the port, someone yells at Hizaki, saying what he's doing is wrong. He's not keeping order. He's ruling through violence and fear. The man says he's not even human anymore. He's acting like an animal, shocking him. Hizaki then shoots the man right in the forehead. He starts remembering what happened to his father. His ideals mix with distortion, making him believe he's acting like his father. His friend was wrong. Everything he did was for the sake of order. That's why that man was considered evil under Hizaki's justice. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He screams that to himself, trying to believe it. Now he's falling into the pit, but laughter escapes his mouth. He remembers MC's words saying he's not a person. A sad grin forms on his face, and he realizes this is the end. In the end, he was an animal, and then he falls straight into the monster's mouth. Finally, he meets his end and turns into Satoru Gojo. MC watches this and seems shaken by what he witnessed. Two men see their leader's death and are in disbelief. What appears to be the last of the hunters is eliminated. As things start calming down, someone picks up the train key lying on the ground. Ginkgo realizes she finally has the master key in her hands. She looks at MC but holds back her words for a moment. Then she tells the boy it wasn't his fault what happened with Hizaki. Turning to her, he says it's fine. He'll live with it in the end. Smiling and blushing, she says he's a really strong guy. Noticing she revealed too much, she quickly turns away, and so does he, saying that if he ever wants to whine, he can come to her. The boy suddenly starts running for no reason, and Ginkgo gets startled. Reaching the edge of the pit, she tells him it's better not to look at what's down there. When they glance below, they see the worm has disappeared. Shocked, she says it shouldn't be able to do that and wonders how it vanished. Someone finally provides a coat for Kotone. It was the giant who did it, and she thanks him for that. Armin does the same for Sakura, who thanks him cheerfully, making him happy to have helped. Another tremor shakes the ground. Nishi panics, asking what the hell is going on. The giant worm reappears, this time looking furious. Everyone is stunned by the sight. A new threat emerges out of nowhere, right when they were recovering from the last battle. With a roar, the giant worm summons smaller ones. Sakura asks why it's acting like this now. Shouldn't it stay calm after eating? The situation is way too bad. They're practically surrounded. As the monster charges, someone yells for everyone to run. Several people are caught by the giant and the smaller worms. Not good. One girl barely escapes, but someone beside her isn't so lucky. The worm dives back underground. Nishi wonders why it's acting this way, while Ginkgo is confused since they were never stirred up by light before. In desperation, Sakura theorizes it's mating season. Armin realizes the faint light from earlier isn't enough to keep them calm anymore. Nishi asks MC what to do, but the boy doesn't answer immediately. Ginkgo steps up, saying they should use the train, though he thought it was still broken. She explains she heard Hizaki say it was already operational. Wasting no time, MC orders everyone to run toward the train. Now that the worm cleared the way, the path to Amashima is open. Nishi rallies everyone, telling them it's time to sprint to the train so they can escape. People are still scared and doubtful, wondering if they can really make it to Amashima. Even with fear, they all start running toward the train. Sana carries her father so he can come too. Someone shouts to help the injured, and others obey. Some hunters who woke up beg to wait for them. They also want to be rescued. Ijima screams to be saved too. One of the group considers leaving him, but another says if they do, they're no better than him. Laughing, Ijima agrees, saying they have to save him. Truth is, he's already planning revenge against them once he recovers. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, a worm shows up to ruin his plans. Paralyzed with fear, Ijima can't move. It's unbelievable he's screwed at the very end, and he panics. Losing his mind, he screams for help, but the others are already far from the worm. Ijima starts remembering all his crimes against people. Every time he threw others as sacrifices, every assault he committed. His mind replays everything that happened recently in his life. He was hated by everyone, and now he's finally paying for it. Still screaming for help, it's too late. We see he's about to be devoured. His arm is seen lying far from the rest of his body. His end has come. A group finally reaches where the train is. Nishi checks if there are any monsters inside, but it's safe. He urges everyone to hurry up and get in, when suddenly someone screams. A worm approaches, but the giant punches it away. Rikuto takes down another that gets close to him. Armin calls out to Nishi, asking what to do about the cars still buried. Ginkgo runs over, saying the only option is to detach them and use the ones still free. Spotting the connector, she quickly pulls the pin holding the cars together. Now they can use the train. Nishi tells her to get in because it's time to start, and she has the key. Everyone is already inside, still tense about what's going to happen. Ginkgo reaches the first car and asks how things are going. Panicking, Kotone says she tried to start the train, but it didn't respond. She fears the power source may have failed completely. Sakura steps in, asking to move aside, startling Ginkgo. Opening a panel in the floor, she finds what she was looking for. Someone had deliberately switched the wires, making the train fail. Ginkgo immediately remembers Hizaki and gets furious knowing he was behind this. Sakura knows how to fix it, surprising Kotone. Pulling out tools from nowhere, she says she'll fix it in an instant. Ginkgo asks Kotone who Sakura really is, and she replies she's wondering the same. Weren't they friends? While the train still can't start, the three boys stay outside fighting off the worm invasion. Finally, the repairs are done. Sakura stands up and tells Kotone to use the key to start it. Quickly, she grabs the key and turns the ignition. The train roars to life, startling everyone as it powers up. Sakura feels proud of fixing the wiring, and Armin praises her work too. He asks what they should do next, but but she admits she doesn't know. Frustrated, she says she can fix it, but doesn't know how to operate it. Someone speaks up saying it's fine, and they turn to see who it is. It's Sana's father. He was a train operator, so he knows how to drive it. Another worm appears. The three boys are still outside fighting, the endless horde wearing them down. They're starting to tire, facing too many problems at once. The giant worm appears in front of the three. Nishi says it's finally here and waits for MC's instructions. The boy looks to the side, seeing the train is finally running. The girls scream that the train's about to move and they need to get on. The three quickly retreat, sprinting toward the train. The girls reach out their hands to pull them in as the train starts to roll forward. Rikuto and Ginkgo grab hands at the same time, while the other two have to fend for themselves to climb aboard. Finally, everyone's inside the train. The worms start chasing them underground, but they're not fast enough. The train picks up speed and finally pulls away from the monsters. Unfortunately, the giant worm still shows up to cause trouble. Rikuto asks Nishi what's the situation, and he says everything's fine. Everyone made it on board, even the injured. Sana talks to her father, asking if his wounds are better, and he says he's okay. Now that they're inside, everyone starts celebrating being safe. The girls cry with emotion, hugging each other for finally being free from both the worms and Hizaki. Nishi and Ginkgo are also relieved it's finally over, and Rikuto agrees with everyone there. They're all so happy, and honestly, this screams, someone's about to die, don't you think? The worm starts moving at an insane speed. It catches up to the train and rams it, shaking everything. A girl runs down the corridor, panicking. Apparently, the last car was hit and everyone's terrified. A worm had reached the back car and was already attacking the people there. It charges toward everyone. Breaking in from the side, the worm starts tearing the train apart from the outside in. People start running, trying to escape. The situation turns bad again as it tries to destroy the subway. Another tremor shakes the train, and the boys lose their balance with the violent movement. That worm is way too strong. If this continues, it could stop the train, and they're all screwed. Armin complains about coming so far only to fail. Finally, MC takes action and runs toward the worm to end this. Ginkgo also runs after him to help, leaving Nishi behind. MC reaches the last car, where people are still fleeing as the worm pushes further inside. Rikuto clears the way for them to escape. A man falls to the ground, about to be eaten if no one acts. The boy leaps forward. He blocks the monster's attack with his pipe just in time. He yells for the man to run to the front car, and the man obeys immediately. The worm tries to bite MC's pipe to break it, but he pulls back in time. Still, the monster doesn't give up and lunges again. With everything he's got, MC deflects its strikes. The worm is insanely fast, and its blows are heavy. One mistake, and it's game over. His group finally shows up, and Nishi asks if the boy's okay. MC orders them to detach the car, shocking Nishi. He says he'll hold the thing off until they manage to release it, with Nishi protesting because this plan leaves MC behind. But he says he'll jump back at the right moment. Ginkgo hates the idea too, but agrees it's the only option and goes to pull the pin. She uses all her strength, but the mechanism is stuck. The piece is rusty, making it hard to move. The giant steps in, saying he'll do it. Even he struggles to pull the pin. Nishi joins in, along with the others. Sakura volunteers too, while Ginkgo calls out to the protagonist. He's still fighting the monster and can't answer. The situation is bad. The car is tight, limiting MC's movements, but if Ginkgo goes in to help, she'll just get in the way. The monster breaks through MC's guard, about to pierce him. Everyone is pushing with all they have to release the last car, but it's really stuck. The giant gives it everything, while Sakura holds onto his chest for moral support. We all want that kind of support. Finally, the piece comes loose, and they all fall back from the force. Everyone jumps into the car still attached to the train. Nishi calls out to MC, who turns to run toward him. An injury in his leg makes him stumble. The monster had just hit his ankle, and the boy falls to his knees. Seeing the chance, the worm grabs Rikuto's leg, shocking him. Nishi screams as he watches his friend being dragged to his end, and Kotone panics. The boy quickly tries to calculate a way out, but starts wondering if this is as far as he goes. No, he won't give up that easily. After all, he's still alive. Pulling out his pipe, he prepares to strike his own leg. Before he can do anything, Ginkgo jumps in, cutting the monster's tentacle and freeing MC. Furious, she charges further at the worm, screaming. She drives her knife straight into the monster's brain. Shocked, MC asks why she's there. She grabs him by the shoulder, saying he's just showing off. They're alive and need to reach Amashima together, so he can't act like he can do everything alone, or she'll kill him herself. The two run as fast as they can, but the cars start separating. Nishi is nervous. He wants to help, but they're already too far from the detached car. MC tells Ginkgo to jump first. He'll follow after, but the worm lunges again. She decides to jump with him, carrying him, though he's unsure about it. Looking at him, she says he believed in her, so he should trust her one more time. With a smile, he says he already trusts her completely, which fires her up. They reach the edge of the car, but time's short, and the monster's right on their tails. Fuyus jumps at the same time the worm attacks. The car behind them explodes as they're midair, and Nishi stretches out, trying to grab them. Unfortunately, they're still too far to reach the car. Do they even know what inertia is? Worse, they're heading into a curve, about to hit a wall. Fuyus plants her foot on the ground. Using the momentum, she jumps again, yelling not to underestimate her. They're going to make it, and she pushes off hard. Their hands get closer. Ginkgo realizes even like this, she won't reach the car and starts apologizing to MC. At that moment, the boy thanks her and stretches out his arm. Using his pipe, he gains just enough reach. A hand grabs the end of MC's pipe. The train speeds at full throttle. A worm appears right in front of the train at the curve's end. It's not strong enough and gets crushed under the train. The worm is completely destroyed by the subway's speed and weight. Finally, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and for once, it's a good thing. The train bursts out of the tunnel and they're outside at last. Nishi collapses on the floor, panting, staring ahead. Ginkgo and MC are lying on the floor too, and Nishi says they somehow made it. Yeah, thanks to plot armor. In disbelief, Ginkgo says she doesn't know how they pulled it off, and Rikuto agrees. Katone is emotional and thankful, as is Nishi. Armin comments it was a close one, and everyone starts celebrating again. Sitting in a seat, MC tells Ginkgo she saved him, so now he owes her big time, but she just says she was returning the favor. Lately, it's been him saving her too much. Still, there's more to it. Ever since her mother died, she gave up on the world, thinking it was too filthy. Life had no meaning to her anymore, but now her view is changing. Annoyed, she says living isn't so bad after all. Smiling, Rikuto says they should stay alive as long as they can, okay? Everyone is excited to be alive and wants to survive together. Even in a broken world like this, being alive is amazing. And finally, MC drops the title of the manga. Blushing, she sees MC extend his hand for a handshake. Taking it, she says he's as cheesy as always. Finally, they arrive in the city of Amashima. And if you want to know what happens next, the truth behind the calamity, and how they'll survive in this world, drop a comment asking for the next part.